Warhammer x LOTM, The Black Emperor by author Jiao Chao Emo. Chapter 1067-1085. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And those who want to support me, I have a Patreon channel, get early access to video on Patreon. 1067 The Black Emperor is a true god, how could he not know about Koz's little tricks? The spacious Primarch meeting room was almost entirely filled with members of the Nimrod War Council. In addition to the 5 chapter leaders of Shadow of Order, there are 5,000 sons including Hather Mat, the Twilight Raider Nathaniel Garo, the Lord Commander Vespasian of Sons of the Emperor, Tagan Khan of White Scar, and the Midnight Lords Zoshar and Cassiti Nuon. Nimrod's gaze swept over Aang, the Supreme Captain of the Tiger Eye, Titan Legion, and Victor, the Supreme King of Mordred, before finally settling on Schulzer, the Supreme Captain of the Dark Flame. He had just passed through the Caligum Gate and arrived in the Eastern Galaxy. Schulzer noticed the Primarch staring at him, and his heart pounded. After the War of the Iron Rings, he finally had another chance to serve Lord Nimrul. As you command, I have contacted the Titan Legion, the Lord of Destruction, through the secret methods of the ancient Vulcan. I will report back to you immediately upon receiving your reply. Under Horus's leadership, the once most powerful Titan Legion of the Empire, the Legion of Vulcan, was split into 2 Titan Legions, the Legion of Darkfire, and the Legion of Destruction. After the grand birthday celebration began, the King of Destruction chose to follow the war commander. Although the 2 Titan Legions have been separated for many years, they are ultimately of the same origin, and Nimrod believes he can defeat some of the Titans of the King of Destruction. He nodded and said to Arson Dun, "Let's begin." "As you command." The Primarch's servant raised his staff, projecting a dazzling holographic image. Cassati stared at the slowly rotating map of the Ghoul star system. Lord Ning Lu, the traitors have become engrossed in the pleasure of killing and death, ignoring the significance of military operations. However, a small number of people, such as Sevita, will not forget their goal. The 2 most critical strategic points in the entire star system are the Triple System and Salamas. Salamas and the surrounding star system are densely populated, which can replenish the rebels' ever-expanding manpower. The 3 closely connected forging worlds supply the rebels with weapons, equipment and ammunition. Ning Lu nodded in agreement. "That's right, our first target is the Triple Star System. A Ramirez-class star fortress is in the process of being deployed and is expected to arrive in 15 standard days," said Alcena, whose hair was as white as snow. Although the combined production capacity of the 3 casting worlds of Far, Galatia and Tull is less than that of large casting worlds such as Lucius and Glia, it is still higher than that of Supreme Valia, Incarardian and Diamond Star, and has some unique STC templates. Taking into account its value, the chaotic situation in the Ghoul starfield, and his plans to conquer the Far, Nimrod decided to deploy a Ramirez-class star fortress. He looked at Perkasielny, the lord of the 11th Battle Group, and asked, "How is Far's plan progressing?" 2. "My lord, Viscount Wangting has followed Khan Aguhan to the Triple Star System. The plan has already begun." Seeing the puzzled look on the faces of Schulzer and Hather, Karloffus, and Menkala, who had recently joined the Black Emperor's War Council, Zoshar spoke up. The 3 forging worlds of the Triple Galaxy have different attitudes toward Horus and Koz. Galatia has fallen into the dark mechanical cult. Although the Thule was founded by Galatia, they are extremely loyal to the Emperor and refuse to accept any mechanical intelligence, even the most basic automata. Lord Ning Lu believes that Far's will is not firm, and he will surrender once he realizes that they are doomed to failure. Nimrod remembers that after the Dark Angel destroyed Galatia, the traitors of Far dared not face the Lion King's wrath and fled Far. The Loyalists seized the opportunity to take control of the forging world and then surrendered. Far was established during the Dark Age of Technology, and is the most powerful of the 3 forging worlds, meeting the requirements of the 1100-year Order Kingdom. He selected a Shadow of Order who had already digested the Corrupted Baron potion to send as an advance party to Fal. Far will be the stage for his advancement to Chaos Mentor. "My lord, the 8th Legion has always been unpopular with the Great Forge world and has long faced supply problems," Zoshar said. Quartz decided to solve this problem in the dark. He issued orders to make secret deals with many worlds hidden in the Dark Frontier, out of the Empire's sight. Those worlds are not to be tolerated by the Empire. Ning Lu noticed Zoshar's reminder and spoke calmly. "The Midnight Treaty. If things go wrong, they will be mobilized to join the war. Of particular note among these worlds is the predatory forging world that roams between reality and the warp." Zoshar looked at the Black Emperor with awe. He had never been to the galaxy, yet he knew secrets that neither the Emperor nor the Seal-Bearer knew. The Black Emperor is a true god, how could he not know about Koza's underhanded tactics? My lord is wise, and this is indeed the case. Triple Galaxy. The Sam, the flagship of Agu Khan, marked with white scars, cruises through the void like a fish. The 29 ruthless hunters in midnight blue pursued relentlessly, their crimson spears flying like arrows. Bridge. The corrupted Baron stared at the red runes rising from the holographic projection, Fal and Galatia's interception fleet. Aguhan looked at the enemy ships that were closing in like a net and said with a smile, I will definitely complete my lord's mission and deliver you to Far. The corrupted Baron raised his hands, clasped them together, and the Legion's ships were all built with the Black Emperor's cathedral. During their voyage, the priests preached the Black Emperor's doctrines, enlightening those in the shadow of order. Agu Khan clearly had long been a believer in the Black Emperor, perhaps even before him. Agu Khan silently praised the Black Emperor, then immediately spoke and swiftly issued orders. Change course, first proceed towards 330, with an inclination of 6. Then change course and proceed at 4-8, with an inclination of 9. The corrupted Baron looked at the series of illusory runes and took a deep breath. Aguhan had planned a twisting, zigzagging route that frantically cut through the narrow gap between the blockade lines of the two red fleets, Far and Galatia. Like other White Scar fleets, the SAM sacrificed its shields and defenses, allocating most of its power to propulsion. This means that once the shields are covered by enemy fire, they will be overloaded in a short time, followed by the destruction of the ship and loss of life. You should go to the flight deck, Aguhan said. Our time is short, just a moment. The corrupted Baron gazed at the confident Agu Khan and silently praised the Black Emperor once again. He strode toward the elevator and pressed the keypad lock. Amidst the billowing cold mist, the door slid open. The elevator descended rapidly. Clang. The corrupted Baron swayed. Clang, clang. Each tremor shook the heart of the corrupted Baron. He knew that the SAM was flipping and jumping in midair, using braking force to escape the enemy fleet. With a smooth braking motion, the elevator slowly came to a stop. The corrupted Baron strode off the deck and led his guards into the drop pod. Greater than 1068 Sevatar, the unknown Agu Khan is actually Storm Seer, as powerful as Yesuge. On the bridge of the Sam, Jagatai Khan of the White Scars stared at the dotted runes and rapidly approached his target, Forge World, following the trajectory he had drawn. A piercing alarm sounded, and above his head hung the psionic drake, a gift from the Black Emperor not long ago. After the Horus Rebellion, Aguhan took advantage of the disruption to interstellar communication to break away from Legion. He was then granted new powers by the Black Emperor and became the Dreamwalker. Sir, we've been locked down by teleportation. Locate the source of the signal, Agu Khan ordered. Night Lords. Before the adjutant could finish speaking, blinding beams of light burst forth. A beam of light shone on the thinker, then the light receded, and the midnight blue body embedded itself into the cogitator. Crack. With a deafening roar, the cogitator exploded, its massive form pierced by the electric shock. Agu Khan drew his scimitar from his waist, pressed the rune, and looked toward the enemy forces on the bridge of the teleportation. They wore Pluto-type Terminator armor, with the Night Lords, lightning bolt pattern on their left knee and red claw emblems on their left shoulder armor. The elite black armored guards of the Night Lords. Taking advantage of the firelight from the explosion, Agu Khan quietly disappeared into the shadows. He moved stealthily in the blind spot of the black armored guards, then suddenly swung his curved blade. The blade gleamed coldly, and the black armored guard only noticed the flickering eerie blue light when it was still a fist's distance from the midnight blue armor. As soon as his claws were raised, the dark blue scimitar slashed down onto the Pluto-type Terminator armor. Bang! The dark blue corpse crashed down. Amidst the roar of a whirring engine, a massive chainsaw weapon roared in. Aguhan flicked his wrist, sending his curved blade forward to meet Nostromo, whose sword was somewhat similar to the guando, a type of halberd widely used by the White Scars. Chainsword. His gaze swept over the stripped flesh covering the midnight blue armor, and his helmet was shaped like a slanted skull. His eyes narrowed, and a name flashed through his mind. Yago Sevatar. Although Sevatar is not considered the most outstanding hero of the Great Crusade, as Ezekiel Abaddon, Sigismund, Raldoran, or Howard Finder, the Lord of the First Chapter, and Bukayo Arshaven, the Lord of the Third Chapter, the offspring of the Black Emperor, he is also considered one of the strongest among the many First Captains, alongside Kaz Wayne of the Dark Angels, and Sanchez, the Lord of the Seventh Chapter of the Order Shadow. Even Qin Sha, the Primarch's attendant of her father, was not as famous as Sevatar. The serrated edges tore into the dark blue blade. Nostromo of Sevatar Chainsword was knocked off balance, his dark eyes fixed intently on the tall, slender white scars. His dark eyes gleamed, blinking like obsidian. Nostromo Chainsword sweeps across, its rotating serrations striking with a trajectory almost impossible for Dreamwalker's extrasensory vision to detect. Aguhan, through the perspective of the hovering psionic drake, captured the trajectory of the swift attack. He spun his scimitar to meet the blade. Bang! With a loud bang, Aguhan felt his arm go numb, and Sevatar's power surged instantly, becoming close to his own. The Black Emperor's oracle suddenly flashed through his mind, along with the information about Sevatar in the documents that were issued at the same time. Although he was never a librarian, he possessed innate psychic power. He has been suppressing his power, but he will unleash his latent psychic energy whenever the battle demands it. Out of the corner of Aguhan's eye, a streak of blood flashed by. Black armored guards charged into white scars. Nostromo Chainsword roared and hissed. Its swirling, sharp teeth tore through the white armor. Severed limbs and remains hung on the midnight blue armor, becoming part of the spoils of war. White scars fought valiantly, their scimitars whirling and slicing into the Tartarus-type armor, but the black armored guards continued to charge and slaughter the Brotherhood's warriors. Aguhan quickly glanced at the holographic image. The SAM was only 4,700 kilometers away from the target. He opened the communication channel and said, "Abandon firepower and the Void Shield, advance at full speed." After hanging up the call, Dreamwalker, Aguhan pulled a bottle of medicine from his waist. He clenched his gauntlet tightly. Order Shadow, Chief Apothecary. The potion Mikkel gave him was pervasive. After Aguhan was promoted to Dreamwalker, he tested it with a 1% dose. He didn't know much about herbs, but during the test he still recognized a familiar ingredient, mandrake. A refreshing scent permeated the breathing grills of the black armored guards, who instinctively looked toward its source, drawn by the clean aroma. Dreamwalker raised his left arm and slowly drew a Shigori-style circle in front of his chest. His movements were slow, out of place on the bustling battlefield. Both the black armor guard and white scars seemed to be stuck in spider silk, their movements becoming slower and slower. Dreamwalker cannot forcibly pull a person into a dream, but it can when used in conjunction with hypnosis. The spirituality of Dreamwalker spread, and he cleaved his hand into a knife shape. The white scars' eyes were as sharp as eagles, their scimitars whistling as they slashed down, one strike after another against the midnight blue armor. The black armored guards grinned cruelly, their lightning claws flailing wildly as they tore at White Scar's body. The motor roared and spun, sawing open White Scar's chest. Agu Khan raised his curved sword and slashed at Sevatar's head. The hiss of the energy field flashed in the obsidian eyes. PFF'd. Sevatar blinked. His dark eyes were sharp as a bald head. Nostromo Chainsword roared and slashed at Agu Khan. Aguhan was taken aback. This was the first time he had encountered a subject he had failed to hypnotize. Sevatar's will and dangerous instincts were more terrifying than he had imagined. With a thought, Dreamwalker's body suddenly became ethereal and vanished in a flash. Sevatar surveyed his surroundings, his dark eyes sweeping over one figure after another. He chuckled coldly, "Hide away. I'll kill all your men and see if you can still hide then." As Sevatar spoke, he raised Nostromo Chainsword, stabbed into the back of a white scars. Dreamwalker suddenly leapt out of a black armored guard's dream, casually swinging his scimitar towards the guard's head. Sevatar's cold gaze fell upon him, and his serrated blades roared as he slashed towards Agu Khan. Aguhan once again traveled through dreams, hiding in the dream of another black armored guard. Sevatar snorted, raised his hand and grabbed White Scar's wrist. Nostromo Chainsword sweeps across the market. Blood cascaded down like a waterfall, staining the midnight blue armor crimson. Sevatar immediately lunged at the nearest White Scars, his wrist spinning violently at the last moment before the sword swung down, whistling as it struck Agu Khan. Agu Khan had just leapt out of the black armor guard's dream when the sword was already at his body. He had no time to dodge, and layers of scales appeared on his skin. The serrated blades roared as they tore through the white, raptor-like new power armor, biting into the dark gold scales. Mars splattered everywhere. The scimitar whistled as it tore through the Pluto-type Terminator armor. Blood dripped down. Sevatar's eyes were sharp as steel blades, and he let out a piercing scream. A shrill whistle pierced Agu Khan's ears. A tearing pain ripped through his brain, and he saw stars before his eyes. Just as Dreamwalker was about to become ethereal, he suddenly remembered Sevatar's brutal killings. He stopped abruptly and slashed out with his sword. Just as Sevatar was about to swing his sword, a figure emerged from the darkness. Two lightning-fast claws hissed as they pierced White Scar's back, tearing his heart apart with two short, explosive sounds. Airdrop capsule launched. The notification sounded. Agu Khan smiled, having fulfilled the Black Emperor's divine decree. He mustered his strength, raised his longsword, and thrust it at Sevatar. The power sword tore through midnight blue armor, blasting Sevatar's right ribs into a bloody mess. Sevatar kicked white scars, then coldly glanced at Claw Master Sikahale. He is my prey. Siakar licked his lips. His adventure had slain Lord Sevatar's prey, which would earn him the long-desired warlord status, but it had also enraged the first captain. My lord, please forgive my offense, but a Romulus-class star fort has arrived in the triple system. Sevatar opened the communication channel, and countless scarlet messages surged forth, proclaiming one fact. A Romulus-class star fort has arrived. It has the Order Shadow logo on it. Sevatar immediately recalled a piece of intelligence he had received not long ago. The fleet led by the Gloriana-class battleship B Tower of the Alpha Legion, relying on its absolute naval superiority, was encircling and capturing the fleet of Space Wolves. Just as the Wolf King fleet was about to be annihilated, the Romulus-class star fort, stationed in the Arachnid Nebula, Chimera appeared. The B Tower was almost destroyed by the Chimera in the first wave of fire, and only managed to escape the Chimera's range after losing a large number of ships, including 4 strike cruisers. The Romulus-class star fort forged by Mars was inferior to the one forged by Order Shadow for himself. Romulus-class star fort could easily destroy my fleet. Although his 4 chapters had conquered the triple system, they were no match for the terrifying firepower of the Romulus-class star fort. Sevatar recalled the Nimrod biography he had quickly flipped through, the Shadow King, and one of the obvious facts was that once the Romulus-class star fort was deployed, it meant that the Order Shadow had entered the battlefield on a large scale and would use it as a base. Retreat. A burst of light enveloped the shattered midnight blue armor. Sevatar glanced at the corpse on the ground and identified him by the golden eyes. The seemingly unknown Agu Khan was actually Storm Seer, just as powerful as Yasuge. Gender Own is hailed as the most powerful Storm Seer, but Sevatar believes that Aguhan's power is comparable to that of the other. The beams of light vanished into thin air, and the remaining Honor Guard members gathered around. Just as they were about to approach Jagat Khan's body, Psionic Drake swooped down and hovered above the scimitar. Honor Guard turned his head and saw a dark gold eye branded on the blade. 1069 Order Shadow's Pluto-type Terminator, very different from the Empire. The warship, painted with blue wave patterns, throws out airdrop pods like rolling waterfalls. The torrential rain tore through Galatia's gloomy sky, lashing against the north side of Forge World's third temple. 9th chapter's first Captain Jorginho stepped out of the drop pod, his gaze fixed on Distortion's figure emerging from the city wall in the distance. Several mechanical tentacles coiled around his head, hissing and swaying like snakes. His arms were covered with strangely shaped faces that were tightly adhered to each other, as if they were peeled off skins. The skull on his shoulder clicked and spun, flashing an ominous red light. His servo arm bent, and a blazing beam of light shot out from the Distortion face. Ocean songster, Jorginho was surrounded by a whirlwind, and his black armor soared into the air. A crimson beam of light shot up like a giant python, tracking the black armor warrior's body. With a thought, Jorginho activated thousands of metal plates connected to the neurocortex. The microfiber bundles stretched out, propelling his nimble body through the air as he tumbled and dodged beams of light. Dark Mechanicum, with its green prosthetic eye, gazed at the strange Pluto-type Terminator armor as lines of text scrolled by. The overall structure matches the Pluto-type Terminator armor 92.36%. The armor components differ from the Pluto-type Terminator by 85.71%. Material unknown, search database, similar to the excellent Bastium alloy from Leagues of Votan, with a similarity of 74.09%. He spat out a string of hexadecimal scrap code, take him down, I want his armor. Order Shadow's Pluto-type Terminator armor resembles that of the Empire in appearance, but it has many unique features in terms of materials and technology, making it extremely valuable for research. Jorginho saw the Distortion mechs raise their arms in unison, their flesh intertwined with the metal parts like cables. Ocean Songster held aloft the Storm Axe forged from Storm Adamantite from the broken islands of Thalassa, the Storm Axe crackling with silvery lightning. The Storm Axe roared down, and streaks of silver light struck the center of the Skitari. The electric sparks spread rapidly along the Distortion mechanism. Click, click. Distortion's body exploded, sending charred metal fragments drifting in the wind. Blood and flesh poured down, scattering all over the ground. Berserkers. Jorginho's deep voice echoed across the battlefield. 100 seafarers bypassed the war mask stage and, in their anger at being attacked by the first captain, put on the rage mask. Bang bang bang. Two hearts were pumping powerfully, as if they were about to burst out. Adrenaline is released in a frenzy, and blood circulates rapidly. The seafarers, the Ica Khan-type plasma guns, were sending beams of bright light across the Skitarii. Round after round, the power of their rage carried them to the Dark Mechanicum. Skitarii completed a 4-round salvo before attacking. Miniature suns converged, illuminating the entire battlefield. Dark Mechanicum's ruler, Sage, had his sight taken away, and his prosthetic eye emitted a series of alarm runes. The blinding light gradually faded, and he first noticed the report from the tactical interface. He lost 3,816 assets. The prosthetic eye's vision was immediately restored, a large area of the plane was wiped away, and 5 layers of the surface, piled up with industrial dyes and waste residue, were torn away. A deafening roar filled his auditory sensor as the enraged machine spirit propelled the Land Raider toward him at a speed he had never seen before. Hissing, the sonata of machine spirit gripped his thoughts, and laser cannons shot up beams of light. Sage, the ruler, never imagined that Astartes could perfectly merge with the machine spirit and unleash such a dazzling attack. The sound of the Omniscia bell suddenly echoed in Sage's mind, and the remaining flesh and blood of his body trembled violently with the music. Omniscious mechanical wonder swept overhead and crashed into the shield of the Forge Temple. The bombardment firepower clashed with the shields, and red and blue-purple lights tugged and tore at each other. The burst of light illuminated the gray battlefield as bright as day, turning the visual sensors into a pure white expanse, with dense snowflakes filling the entire field of vision. The logic analysis thinker array is operating at full power. The Order Shadow's firepower is at least 3.8 times that of the other Astartes legions. Attempt to analyze the cause, analysis failed, illogical. Sage's mind went blank, a single thought lingering in his mind. How could Order Shadow possess such terrifying firepower? Beep beep. The beeping alarm startled him awake. A tremendous force struck from behind. Bang! Sage was knocked to the ground. The rumbling of tracks drew ever closer. The mechanical tentacles twitched and swayed, causing Sage's body to spring up. He looked up at the sky, where exploding atomic fireballs and shattered barriers reflected each other, transforming into rolling walls of fire. Runes dissipated one by one, and shields became overloaded one by one. The entire barrier gradually descended, then disintegrated amidst a dazzling burst of purple lightning, releasing an impact that slammed into the city wall like a heavy hammer. Rumble. The city wall shook, leaving behind spiderweb-like marks. Intercept the enemy. Sage, the ruler, ordered his assets to be confiscated, and he decided to pay a heavy price for his survival. Just as the thousands of surviving Skitarii formed 5 lines, the Land Raider's laser cannon suddenly descended and slammed into the black vehicle. Amidst the deafening roar, the blinding beam of light swept across the distortion's body, blasting it into fragments. Following their pre-arranged tactics, the Skitarii immediately began to contract, attempting to reorganize into a tighter formation. A black torrent of steel swept in. One by one, the Skitarii were flung away like loggers, crashing onto the city wall and turning into a pile of mud. The engine roared as it propelled the steel chassis forward, piercing through the Skitarii's fragile lines. The wheels rolled over Distortion's body, sending debris flying and casting shadows on the ground. Sage's auditory sensors detected the rapidly approaching torrent of steel. Just as he was about to turn around, his body suddenly felt light, and he was lifted into the air. Sage tumbled 13 times in the air before crashing to the ground with a thud. Whoosh! The wheels relentlessly crushed Sage, the ruler of Dark Mechanicum, into the ground. At the same time that the 9th chapter breached Forge Temple No. 3, the fortress of 2nd Victory Titan Legion the Slayer, was also breached. One after another, Nemesis-class Titans trudged out of the fortress's great door. They marched in columns toward the attacked Forge Temple. A series of rapid beeps interrupted the Foundation Titans' advance, and a grid-like vector image was superimposed on their field of vision. One after another, huge red dots pressed down. The Titans raised their steel heads and saw 4 massive Titan transport ships tearing through the thick clouds. They were very different in appearance from the Empire's Gothic warships. Each transport ship carries 6 detachable landing ships and is generally in the shape of a towering hexagon. Each landing ship is equipped with a frigate-class reactor, along with a bulky gravity impeller and braking thruster mounted on its underside, bearing the enormous energy required to safely land the entire Titan squadron on the surface. After the reactor was crammed into the upper part of the landing ship, the remaining space in the internal structure could only accommodate the bare eye-shaped frame. The air defense array alarms sounded, and tens of thousands of missiles roared into the sky, trailing blinding flames as they crashed into the transport ship Titan. The original design of the transport ship was to deploy heavy weapons to the most intense combat zones. The massive energy cannons mounted on the numerous towers were densely packed on both sides of the spaceship. Beams of light rose up, sweeping away the arrows that were raining down from all directions. With a loud cracking sound, the landing ship separated from the main body of the transport ship. Rumble. Mushroom dust clouds billowed, and rows of dark fire helicopters. The divine machines of Titan Legion lined up and walked off the deck. Greater than 1070 Lord Nimrod shatters the void shield with a single sword strike. Please remember the website for the fastest chapter updates. The giant feet of the flame of glory tread on the grey land of Galatea, and Herzl gazes through the eyes of the Titan at the enemy Titans ahead. Their paint scheme is predominantly blue, with yellow and black accents. He suppressed his burning desire for honor and fully activated the heavy bird-based instrument array, including spectral sensors, electromagnetic detectors, radar scanners, and echolocation devices, to identify the situation in the battlefield area. 15 Warlord-class Titans, 38 Nemesis-class Titans, 17 Marauder-class Titans, and 16 Warhounds-class Titans. Before launching the attack, Herzl consulted Mars' records to learn about the enemy. At its peak, the 2nd Victory Titan Legion possessed 100 Titans, and it must have suffered considerable losses in the previous suppression of the 1st Victory Titan Legion and the 3rd Titan Legion. He brought 96 Warlord-class Titans, 14 Raider Titans, and 7 Warhound Titans. The chief captain opened the communication channel and addressed all the captains of the Titans. Ladies and gentlemen, some say that the Nemesis-class Titan is comparable to the Warlord-class Titan. Today, we should make them realize the reality: imitations can never be as good as true warriors. Form a 6-aircraft fighter squadron. Laughter echoed across the battlefield. The Nemesis-class Titan, positioned between the Warrior-class and the Marauder-class Titans, was developed to destroy the alien Titans and is considered a Titan hunter, capable of contending with the Warrior-class, the mainstay of the Titan Legion. Dark Fire's warriors marched heavily, forming firepower formations. The captain gazed at the slowly forming battle formation and continued speaking. Lord Nimrod has entrusted us with the honor of punishing the 2nd Victory Titan Legion. This is our glory, let dark fire be unleashed on the battlefield. The Supreme Captain's mind became one with the machine spirit. He raised his arms, and 2-door volcano cannons locked onto a Nemesis-class Titan. The earthquake cannon has locked onto us, reported the sensor operator inside the mechanical throne. I will destroy it before it causes any damage. Herzl clenched her arms, and the volcano cannon emitted a blinding light. The Euro stabilizer rapidly corrected the angle, allowing the blinding white beam of light to precisely hit the blue machine. The same blinding beam of light arrived 5 seconds later, striking the void shield. The molten flow tore through the air, crisscrossing each other, and simultaneously struck the opponent's armor like the lances of an ancient knight. The void shield's energy continued to decrease, and crackling sounds created ripples. The blazing machine spirit of the blazing glory erupted in fury, the plasma reactor burned fiercely, and roars filled Herzl's mind. The blazing glory was eager to run, it couldn't wait to unleash its fury. The helmsman tried his best to stabilize the Titan's pace, but the machine spirit still forced the shin guards to move. The ancient machine spirit strode forward disdainfully, its massive mechanical foot slamming into the ground. Herzl knew that simply resisting and confronting the machine spirit would only make it more agitated. He must listen to the machine's voice, appropriately loosen its shackles, and unleash the machine spirit's anger. The Nemesis-class Titan trembled, and a devastating beam of light pierced through the barrier. The clumsy blue replica shattered, and machine spirit roared a victory declaration that exploded in the minds of the crew. Cheers resounded throughout the divine machine. Punish the traitors. Release dark fire. Live up to Lord Nimrod's expectations and win glory. 5 Titans followed closely behind the blazing glory, forming a firepower strike array. The blazing glory strode forward, unleashing a torrent of bullets erupting from the volcano. The barrage of bullets swept across, blasting yet another Nemesis Titan into pieces. Herzl looked down through the Titan at the long, desperate eyes of the man staring at his phone. His will, along with his divine abilities, was consumed by the dark fire. Captain, the enemy has retreated. They have gathered their forces and are trying to stop our advance. Herzl glanced at the operator's report and found 12 warriors lined up in front of the fortress. The Nemesis-class ships also gathered on both flanks and deployed in formation. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment of truth has arrived. Amidst the deafening roar, the Warlord-class Titan squad gathered together, forming a ring. Their shoulders thumped, and thunderous roars filled the battlefield. Thousands of deadly missiles rose up simultaneously, trailing fiery tails, overwhelming the enemy's divine machine like a tidal wave. A mushroom cloud rose up, lifting the Titan transport ship into the air. As the smoke dissipated, blue machines exploded one after another, and yellow and black fragments rained down like a waterfall. Herzl gazed at the remaining 27 enemy planes, and them. Dark fire! Dark fire! Amid a series of responses, earthquake cannons roared and volcanic cannons shone brightly. Rumble! As the earth trembled violently, one after another divine machines crashed onto the fortress. The fortress of 2nd Victory Titan Legion collapsed with a roar. Dark fire! At the same moment Titan Legion won its victory, Nimrod set foot on the surface of Galatea. He knew that Galatea and Far had been secretly experimenting with forbidden technologies, and that the abomination intelligence they created was causing massive casualties among the Dark Angels. Lion L. Johnson is forced to activate the Kairos emergency plan, awakening the extinction remnants in the stasis reservoir. Their neural cores were immune to Dark Mechanicum's cyber magic, but 5 extinction relics were destroyed after the war, and Archmagos also branded scars onto Ryan's armor. Although not widely known, this Archmagos is probably only slightly weaker than Anacharis, the future Dora Kal, and Kelber Hal. The intelligent machines of Order Shadow were all dispatched to Valia Maximal to fight in the Steel Ring War. In order to deal with the intelligent machines, he decided to personally step into the battlefield. The soldiers guarding the city wall cried out in alarm as they watched the black armored giant approach. Nimrod, he's here, we can't hold the line. Report this to Archmagos immediately. Shut up, Commander Sage shouted. Their heavy weapons haven't landed yet, so it's impossible for them to break through the void shield barrier. Attack! Beams of light rained down on Nimrod. With a single step, Mentor of Disorder swept past all the beams of light and instantly arrived in front of the city wall. The orange-yellow giant sword rose up and spun as it cleaved towards the city wall. The layers of barriers bent along with the surrounding void. The brilliant light, tinged with the colors of dusk, quickly faded away. As Sage gazed at the black armored giant, his logic engine crashed. The void shield of the Galatea Forge Temple, the first overload, was caused by a single person. Magister Templi of Pyre Cult, Caliphus stared blankly at the city walls. Lord Nimrod, he shattered the void shield with a single blow. Since the end of the Great Crusade, the Pyre cult has remained at the forefront, but even with all its might, Caliphus could not break through the void shield of the Forge Temple. He even doubted whether his father could have done it with the full force of his psychic energy released before his soul shattered. However, Lord Nimrod shattered the void shield with a single sword strike. Greater than 1071 Lord Nimrod, indeed, has mastered the ultimate secrets of geometry. Nimrod pressed the rune, and the Hand of Order gauntlets emitted a golden light. Boom! The golden fist slammed into the thick steel walls of Galatea's main foundry, blasting a huge hole in them. The intense light from the furnace shone through and shone on Nimrod's face, making his face appear red. Click! Spiderweb-like cracks spread out. Steel scraps fell in a flurry. Golden wings rose, slicing forward and cleaving a slit like a razor. Thump thump. Hundreds of Skitarii tumbled and fell. Dusk Raiders Commander Nathaniel Garo gazed ahead, and Lord Nimrod instantly breached the walls of the Forge Temple. He couldn't help but recall how, during the liberation of Druin, his father charged towards the hive like alien, only to be frozen in place. He claimed that Nimrod defeated the leader of the Xenomorphs through psionic powers. Nathaniel disagreed with his father's statement. Lord Nimrod had defeated the Wolf King twice and had also broken through Lord Phoenix's defenses. Few can rival Primarch. No, perhaps no one can rival him. Nathaniel watched as the golden wings fluttered, and Lord Nimrod leapt into the city. Having completely abandoned his identity as a Night Lord, Cassidy Nuon's midnight blue armor was painted entirely black. He followed in Lord Nimrod's footsteps, reaching out his claws to grip the torn city wall and climb up. With alternating claws, Cassati scaled the city wall. Their dark eyes swept over the Skitarii, but they did not attack the enemy. Their eyes followed the departing black-armored, golden-winged figure. Even the partially mechanized, and even the distortioned, Skitarii felt fear. Cassati suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. Lord Nimrod did not engage in brutal massacres, but the intimidating effect of his terrifying attacks was somewhat similar to that of his father. Following a familiar feeling, he leapt down. A black shadow enveloped Skitarii, and with a hiss, its claws slashed down, cleaving distortion in two. Sul Kontep, the temple master of Pyre cult, slipped through the gap torn open by Lord Nimrod and stepped into the city. A blazing beam of ethereal light shot towards us. A wall of fire rapidly rose in front of Sewer. Whoosh! The blazing beam pierced through the shield and shot straight toward the crimson armor. Sewer suddenly raised his left arm, and a torrent of molten liquid gushed from his gauntlet. Boom! The ether beam exploded, and Mars flew everywhere. Sol looked toward the source of the ethereal vision, which was the arcane weapon embedded in his tail. The massive, multi-legged structure, construct, is made of brass and steel, with a vile 8-pointed star hanging overhead. Harba intelligent agent. Sol recalled Lord Nimrod's words of hatred towards the machines before launching the attack. The artificial eye on the chest of the Harba AI spun and emitted a beam of light, flying towards Sewer. Sewer's body burst into flames, surrounded by raging fire. The light struck the flames, creating a loud crackling sound. Sol waved his staff, and a flaming spear shot out and struck the Harba AI. The brass and steel cracked and exploded, turning the area charred black. The multi-legged creature slid swiftly like a centipede, reaching Sewer and raising its scythe-like claws to smash him down. Sol drew his Prospero scimitar and met the scythe claws. When the magnificent silver scimitar sprang up, the Harba agent's power was far greater than he had anticipated. Sewer ascended to the 8th level of Magnus, the most aggressive level of mind. Most Thousand Sons enter and maintain this state of mind during battle to unleash their destructive power to the fullest extent. Pirate cult, Thousand Sons, especially favors this level of mindset. Sur unleashed a torrent of furious flames, crashing wave after wave against the Harba agent. Bang! The multi-legged structure crashed to the ground, and the body of the Harba intelligent entity exploded. Sewer put away his staff and looked to his right. Commander of Emperor's Children, Vespasian rapidly circled the Alba agent, firing archiattack pistols continuously. Beams of light collected from the stellar radiation layer streaked through the cracks, blasting one dark mechanicum distortion creation after another into fragments. His honor guard, Palatine Blades, wielded the ceremonial sword and held back the Alba agent. The sharp blade of the Eagle Claw sword clashed with the Sickle Claw, blasting out a shower of Mars. Seeing that they were capable of fighting the Albanian agents, Sol did not join them. Although they have been working together for some time, they do not yet have enough trust. Sewer's gaze then fell on Magister Templi 5 Achaea pattern Fortress Star robots beside Caliphus. At one point, the Pirate cult had 38 of these vehicles, with Caliphus alone operating 14 of them. But after the burning of Prospero, only 14 units remained. Without the support of Jiao Akata from Forge World, Thousand Sons of Fire Phoenix was unable to complete the forging process on its own. 5 Achaea pattern Fortress Star robots lined up in a row, their Baroque-style heavy punch-bolt cannons booming and exploding overhead, causing the earth to tremble. A barrage of bullets rained down on the 3 Alba AI agents. The Alba AI's tail emerged from its shoulder, and an ether beam shot up, slamming into the body of an Achaea pattern Fortress Star robot. The psychic crystal dimmed, and a ball of black flame rose up. The Baroque-style heavy punch-bolt cannon slowly descended and slammed down on his head. Caliphus's eyes blazed with fury as he raised his staff high. The 4 psychic crystals ignited with phoenix runes, and a barrage of flames rained down on the Alba AI. Boom! Boom boom! 1 Achaea pattern Fortress Star robot and 2 Alba agents exploded simultaneously, sending beams of light shooting into the sky. Just as Su was about to wave his staff, the voice of Menes Caliston, the company commander of the 4th Fellowship, suddenly rang out. Lord Nimrod. As Sol looked around, Lord Nimrod swooped down, heading straight for the center. Dozens of Alba AI agents raised their tails in unison, and a dazzling beam of light seized Sewer's world. He squinted slightly, adjusting his eyes to the blinding light. Round. A circle. Lord Menes is obsessed with geometry. Sol had already heard that Menes had been exploring the mysteries of geometry, and that he named his society and his flagship after geometry. Triangle. Sewer opened his eyes and immediately saw the Alba robotman spinning rapidly. The mechanical legs seemed to be slipping on lubricating oil, causing the body to tilt. He recalled Menez's words, and the word Menez had just used flashed through his mind: circle. The sickle claws slammed into the ground with a thud. Sewer stared at the cross-section of the severed arm, then sketched in his mind a triangle with interior angles of 55, 60, and 65 degrees. A 5-pointed star, an oval shape, Menez murmured, reciting one shape after another. As Sol looked around, Lord Nimrod swung his arm, and the amoeba's severed limbs flew off, and its head slid off. Lord Nimrod, indeed, you have mastered the ultimate secrets of geometry. Menes' eyes welled up with tears, his whole body trembling as he witnessed the ultimate truth of the universe unfolding before him. Bang! The last amoeba agent crashed to the ground, bringing the symphony of geometry to a close. Menes, still eager for more, his eyes gleaming, followed Lord Nimrod as his golden wings folded, heading straight for the central temple. A dazzling light shot up with a whooshing sound. The air hissed as the beam of light struck Nimrod. Greater than. 1072 I witnessed with my own eyes how my claws tore through Nimrod's chest. Gazlark Archmagus's mechanical tentacles swayed and snaked out from the central treasury of redemption in the Lord Forge Temple. His arms, shoulders, and mechanical prosthetics rose in unison, and 12 ancient weapons from the Dark Age of technology were aimed at space. Destructive beams swirled, their blinding light tearing through the pervasive smoke. Nimrod, you have invaded the land of Omniscia. Your blasphemous act has angered Omniscia. The majestic sound drowned out the synthesized sound from the sound array. The pronouncement of Mentor of Disorder echoed throughout the Forge Temple. Archmagos, you have betrayed the Empire and your allies, and slaughtered the loyalists of the Far and Thule. You have driven those who strike the enemy, betrayed those who kill and destroy the enemy, and broken the oath of victory. The 3 legions of the Victory Titan Legion each have a title. The first, second, and third are respectively called the Slayer, and the Destroyer. Your greatest crime is to serve Horus, who is my enemy. My enemies are all guilty. Cassidy Nuon of Night Lords paused, gazing at the sky, the majestic pronouncement of Lord Nimrod striking straight to the heart. He bowed his head slightly in reverence. Menkara, the temple master of Corvidae cult, looked up at the sky, gazing as the threads of fate were torn apart, tangled together like a jumble of loose threads. A bolt of lightning, like the finger of a god, pierced through the clouds and struck Archmagos. Bang! Archmagus's body exploded, and burning fragments flew around Mars. This seems to be some kind of spell based on words. By bypassing the process, Archmagus's fate was sealed. He glanced at the Magister Templi of Pyre cult. Caliphus, with 4 Achaea-patterned fortress star robots beside him, their bodies riddled with dents. Could it be that Lord Nimrod also declared his fate with a single word, saving him from the flesh change? The flagship of the Night Lords, the Gloriana-class battleship. Conrad Kurz stares at the blurry holographic projection. The unstable connection only ensures clear audio. Are you really Omegan? Of course I am an Omegan, Alfarius said. More important than who I am is the message I bring you. After Sevatar retreated, Nimrod immediately launched an orbital airborne attack on Galatea and seized the entire Forge world. A squad called Order Shadow was airdropped into Far, and they successfully stirred up the ambitions of the Loyalists. Conrad Kurz crossed his arms, his long, sharp claws pounding against his armor. I thought you were the only one who was good at using this kind of method. I have read Nimrod's biography, and it never mentions that he used similar methods. He will assassinate, causing rivers of blood among the nobles, but he is unlikely to use infiltration tactics. Alfarius shook his head. In fact, he used infiltration in many battles, including Order Shadow and even a mortal agent organization. Think about it, how could he be so candid about everything in a book that publicly promotes his own ideas? Isn't anyone going to be completely honest? Conrad Kurz raised his index finger, his sharp claws resting on his pale chin, and scratched it lightly. Conrad Kurz scratched slightly and chuckled. Alfarius was speechless for a moment, and only spoke after a few seconds. Not everyone is like you, who would use the blood of a king as ink to write the Code of Nostromo and openly proclaim fear. Seeing that Conrad Kurz did not refute him further, he continued. The Triple Galaxy is completely under Nimrod's control. Once you step into it, you will surely die. You're wrong. Conrad Kurz's dark eyes swallowed everything. Do you know what I saw through Nimrod's psionic projection when I first attended the War Council? Alfarius, thinking of Conrad Kurz's psychic prophetic abilities, asked thoughtfully. Did you see yourself kill Nimrod? That's right. Conrad Kurz's voice drifted back to that sad moment from his memories. I quite admire him, his methods are much more interesting than that little crow's. But sadly, I witnessed with my own eyes, at the end of the blood-stained river, my claws tearing his chest apart. You just mentioned the Codex Nostromo. I added a sentence with the blood of 11 kings, Conrad Kurz killed Nimrod. Not every prophecy will come true, Alfarius said. Although Conrad Kurz was powerful, he saved Lorgar Aurelian in Istvan V and destroyed Corvus Corax's claws. However, Nimrod defeated Leman Russ and Ferrus Manus in succession, and he killed the leader of the aliens in Druin before Warmaster and Mortarion. His strength far surpassed that of the Primarch brothers. Don't get too obsessed with prophecies. Our father was such a powerful psyker, if he had foreseen this day, none of this would have happened. Conrad Kurz shrugged. Unfortunately, every one of my predictions has come true. Perhaps this is the price of my power, my curse. Alfarius frowned. If your prophecy comes true, it won't be in the Triple Galaxy. There is a Romulus-class star fort in the Triple Galaxy. Conrad Kurz raised an eyebrow. That's the interesting part. The commander of the beacon tower also calls himself Omegan. We are all Omegans. Omegan emphasized, there's a Remils-class star fort there. I've received your intelligence. Conrad Kurz tapped his cheek with his fingers. He thought of his prize, Vulcan. He still had many methods of punishment that he hadn't used. The game shouldn't have ended so quickly. Nimrod will live on for a while longer, until I get tired of it. I can help you, Alfarius said. Okay. Conrad Kurz hung up the call and walked into darkness. He drew his sticky dagger and approached the massive, black-skinned body. Blood splattered. Coke, flesh, and blood splattered to the ground. Conrad Kurz chuckled like an owl. I'm curious how long you can hold out. 39. Paw. Dark red blood splattered onto the pale face. Traitor. I will never yield to you, no matter what means you use. Conrad Kurz stared at the black, granite-like body, dropped his dagger, and picked up the pliers. I've heard tens of thousands of people say this, but without exception, they all eventually confess to me. You are no exception, my brother. He licked his lips, and the iron clamp swiftly gripped his dark skin. His wrist twisted, round and round. The black muscles were twisted into a pretzel. Vulcan took a deep breath through his nose. Is that all you've got? The claws crackled with electricity, sending shockwaves through Vulcan's body, causing him to tremble violently. Brout's flagship, the Shadow. He looked at the Master of Shadows, who was still 3 times his height even with his wings folded. My lord, we are about to leap into the real world. But I just received intelligence that Nimrod has deployed a Romulus-class star fort in the Triple System. Jump to the Triple Star System, Be'lakor ordered. I control my destiny. 1073 Nimrod, you are nothing more than relying on the Crimson King's earth-shattering masterpiece. Shadow of Sovereignty, Primarch Office. Nimrod leaned against the throne, his self-light sweeping over the 4 sages of Fal. Far's loyalists were purged, leaving only the 4 sages before him. Lord Nimrod, your children tell us that you will forgive our sins. On behalf of Far, we surrender to you unconditionally. We will follow all your commands and atone for the crimes we have committed. Nimrod nodded slightly. I accept your surrender. He suddenly stood up and went to the French windows. His obsidian-like eyes shimmered with light, his gaze piercing through the void as he looked toward the rolling, dazzling light. Amidst the churning etheric tides, a massive heap of corpses was swept up, resembling pearls formed from sorrow. His gaze passed over the wrecked spaceship and landed on the clusters of shadows flying out of the warp rift. Razor-like wings blotted out the sky, surrounding a midnight blue warship. A familiar, sinister aura emanated from within the ship. He existed simultaneously in reality and warp, bound and compressed within the void ship by a strange force. Be'lakor. The Carcharodons have been searching for the fragments of the relic in the eastern galaxy. It fell into the hands of the Night Lords and came into reality as a medium. But how did he arrive and come to exist in reality? Nimrod frowned slightly. Although the boundary between reality and warp was becoming increasingly blurred with the rise of chaos, and devils like Kairos were gradually coming into reality, they were all accompanied by long-term planning or large-scale sacrifices. However, apart from the worlds centered around Salamas, most of the worlds in Ghoul stars have small populations, mostly only a few 100,000. Be'lakor arrived in reality so quickly, and Alfarius didn't even lead the attack himself, capturing me while I was in a coma. I have a feeling that there's a big hand pushing things from behind. Could it be Tzeentch? Nimrod gathered his thoughts and turned to give instructions to the War Council's entourage. Nathaniel, return to the Unbreakable Monarch immediately and, in coordination with Furious Abyss and Death Wither, launch an attack on the space wreckage. The rest of you, follow me to the teleportation platform and board the Night Lord's warship. Nathaniel Garo felt a little regretful that he was unable to fight alongside Lord Nimrod again and witness his brilliance firsthand. I will follow your command. Menkara, the temple master of Corvidae cult, along with other War Council members, followed Primarch onto the teleportation platform. His gaze swept around, and instead of the usual fine gold pillars, there were 11 crystal pillars. The pure crystal reminded him of Prospero reflecting caves. He squinted, filtering out the harsh light, and focused intently on discerning the runes engraved on it. His gaze swept over the star runes, his pupils widening. Menkara is the second highest level psionic craftsman in the 1,000 Suns, after Aemon, and his skill in this field even surpasses that of the first Ahriman. He oversaw the construction of the Prospero psionic array and the placement of the Photop rune array, yet he has never seen a single rune. A figure in black armor and golden wings slowly emerged, Nimrod holding a thick book in his hands. A thick shadow rolled in, and wherever it passed, Night Lords and mortals were cut down by razor wings. Flesh and blood cascaded down like a waterfall, silently swallowed by the shadows. Emperor's children, Lord Commander Vespasian's figure was outlined as he raised his arm and pulled the trigger. A beam of light shot out from the shadowy mist, tearing a gash in it. As the beam of light shot forward, it grew smaller and more blurry, as if it were being gradually swallowed by shadows. Menkara opened his ether eye and vaguely saw 5 blurry yet seemingly solid shadows within the shadows. He had 2 pairs of distinctive horns pointing backwards on his head, and his eyes were filled with malice that reminded him of Devil, who had traveled with 1,000 suns and inhabited the body of a demon puppet. He ascended to the second level of Magnus's mind, using the Black Raven technique to peer into the threads of Devil's destiny. The silk strings are faintly visible, some of them can be seen, but many more float and tumble in the shadows. Beside him, Caliphus and Sul Contep waved their staffs in unison, sending swirling streams of molten metal rushing into the mist. 2 shadowy figures simultaneously raised their hands, and a chilling wind suddenly arose. Each cold, razor-sharp blade slashed towards the vortex of flames, the silent collisions fading into the thick shadows. In the swirling mist, 3 illusory shadows simultaneously lunged at Nimrod. Nimrod's obsidian-like eyes shimmered with light as his perspective rapidly rose, looking down upon the shadows from a higher vantage point. His eyes narrowed, locking onto a shadow on his right. The Mentor of Disorder quietly activated spirit vision, and then saw a body radiating spiritual light. He examined the shadow, trying to make it more discerning. The spiritual radiance emanating from Bellicor's body was quite different. His left eye, right wing, and heart are the most blurred. I seized his relic fragments and placed them in the Nation of Disorder, completely severing my connection with Bellicor. Nimrod seemed to be deep in thought, then noticed a palm-sized area on Bellicor's back where the spiritual light was most intense, even resembling that of the Shadow Blade. It should be a fragment of the relic that brought Bellicor to the present world. After Bellicor merged with the relic fragments, its spiritual radiance, following the connection, was imprinted upon the fragments. He thought to himself thoughtfully. Click. As the Book of Magnus is opened, the pages flip rapidly, then freeze on one particular page. Nimrod raised his right hand, gently stroking the pages of the book, and fiddling with the chains formed by runes. His hand eventually landed on a scene of distortion, into which thousands of grotesque faces were stuffed. Nimrod called out in the ancient language of the Kingdom of Dragons, Sithan. All turned to dust. A venomous scream rang out, as if tens of thousands of wraiths were screaming. Hathermat's memory flashes back to Morning Star, and he quickly ascends to the 3rd level of Thalima's state of mind. As the screams subsided, Hather felt Sithan's terrifying presence sweep past him, heading straight into the shadows. Roar. Bellicor let out an angry roar, raised its claws, and 5 hazy pendulums appeared out of thin air. The sharp blade swung rapidly, tearing through the thick shadows and ripping apart the rolling molten flow. Kasadi Nuon stared at the 5 devils who had suddenly appeared. They were all identical, each with an arm as thick as his waist. Crack. As soon as his lightning claws were activated, the Booklord Nimrod held burst into a brilliant light. An invisible wave surged, and Kasadi's body rose from the ground. The magnetic force of the boots was submerged by the invisible fluctuations, and he spun around and crashed into the deck. Rumble. The hazy pendulum was torn apart, scattering into countless shadows. The 4 shadows vanished with a bang. Bellicor's body was riddled with holes, as if pierced by countless arrows. Nimrod, you are nothing more than relying on the Scarlet King's masterpiece. If I were to descend in my true form, your remnant soul would be annihilated with a mere flick of my wrist. Soon I will return to reclaim the power you have stolen, and my claws will tear your soul apart. Bellicor is a chaotic lesser god who destroyed countless kingdoms and tore apart tens of thousands of races. Hather used its feathering technique to firmly anchor its body to the deck. He stood tall, looking down with disdain at the vanishing devil. How could my lord act so easily? You thought yourself powerful, but you were defeated by the Book of Magnus, which I offered to my lord. My lord even. Hather's obsidian eyes suddenly twitched. Black Emperor hung the book on his waist, and with a pull of his right hand, a hazy, ethereal giant sword appeared out of thin air. He raised his hand and flung the great sword away, saying, I'll give you a chance, it's yours now. Hather frowned and looked hesitantly at the Black Emperor. This is not like my lord's style. Is there some deeper meaning behind your actions? The illusory shadow paused. Bellicor never expected Nimrod to be so arrogant. His undefeated record in battle made him proud. Bellicor's illusory shadows drifted and entwined around the shadow blade. Roar. 1074 I was given a chance, but you failed. Bellicor roared with excitement as the ancient power bestowed upon the anointed by the chaos gods. The 4 gods surged into his body. The master of shadows, body reformed. The first devil prince, who destroyed countless worlds and slaughtered millions of lives, has been reborn. Bellicor was surrounded by destructive power, warp flames rolled, and the deck vaporized and steamed. The triple galaxy is in an uproar. A magnificent rift was torn open by a pair of giant hands, and the warp surged into the real world. The hideous face roared as it charged toward the Order Shadow fleet, crashing into the oval-shaped ape force field and exploding into streaks of colorful light. The gray fighter jet's engine was covered in frost, and the barrage of bullets from its cannons fell like broken pearls. The razor-winged devil collided with its body, instantly growing to 3 times its original size. They roared as they pounced on the Dusk Raiders, fighters. The shells bent and struck the razor's wings, some were distorted and bent, while others passed straight through. Countless devils appeared out of thin air from within the millions of wrecked debris of the spaceship, roaring excitedly. Be'lakor flapped its wings and pounced on Nimrod. Mentor of Disorder stepped toward Be'lakor, then appeared behind him and grabbed the bone statue. Be'lakor double wing rotation. Sizzle. Razor wings sliced through the walls, and a howling wind blew Dreamwalker, Hathermatan, Soul Assurer, Zo-Sahara away. Greed. Be'lakor's voice exploded directly in Nimrod's mind. He raised his left claw and swung it, tearing the veil of reality apart. The vortex of destruction surged, and the deck collapsed and bent into pieces. Be'lakor stared at the destructive vortex, feeling a sense of astonishment. The dark abyss he created was 10,000 times more powerful than it is now. Brout's feet collapsed, and his body plummeted downwards. Praise be to the Master of Shadows. He had just witnessed Nimrod easily defeat the Master of Shadows, and his mind was in turmoil. Now that the Master of Shadows has revealed his true form and a miracle has descended upon the world, they cannot help but shout in fervor. Devil. Caliphus gathered flames in his hands and stared at the terrifying predators emerging around the vortex. They greedily stretched out their claws and opened their blood-red mouths. The crimson chain wrapped around Nimrod's right little finger slowly rotated as he glanced at the illusory shadow blade, which gradually solidified into a real form. He used the Beyander ability, bribery, weakening, when he threw the shadow blade, preventing Be'lakor from fully unleashing his power. At the same time, the spiritual radiance of the shadow blade grew stronger and stronger, but it did not stop, clearly not yet reaching its limit. He ascended directly into the Thelema third layer state of mind, channeling all his restored spirituality into the Hand of Order, and shouted in the Dun language, "Warp weakens here, reality strengthens." The golden beam of light crashed into the vortex. Golden light spread rapidly, consuming vast vortexes of destruction as if boiling the sea and burning the sky. Thousands upon thousands of devils screamed as they were torn to shreds, scattering into countless brilliant points of light, which were then annihilated by the golden light. The remaining hundreds of devil fled in terror. A devil, its massive maw dripping with saliva, writhed and hissed as it lunged at the radiant soul. Hiss. His body was engulfed in golden flames and quickly dissipated. The wrath of the greedy awakened the devil, who then patrolled the passageway leading to the real world. Kasati Nuon extended his left arm, hissing claws gripping the wall. Sizzle. He steadied himself and looked up. Golden light surged up again, enveloping the power fist. Lord Nimrod faced the devil, who was far larger than Primarch. The terrifying devil moved with lightning speed, even Superman's vision couldn't keep up with his movements. Hundreds of giant sword shadows engulfed Primarch's black armored body. Be'lakor felt his power constantly rekindling, and the power of warp surged once more. Shadows loomed, and countless voices roared within Nimrod's mind. Nimrod, you cannot stand against me. You are a thief who stole power that did not belong to you, and you will pay the price for it. I grant you one last chance, return my sacred relic to me, and I will bestow upon you the power of chaos and the power of shadow. Nimrod felt his mental defenses strained, and the Thelema state of mind was constantly bombarded by mental razors. His mind was unable to concentrate, and as his thoughts drifted, a series of hallucinations appeared in his brain. Claws tore open his chest, their tips emerging from his back. The shadow blade sliced through the black armor, devouring his flesh, and his soul seemed to be torn away as well. I want the best potion ingredients. Nimrod's ambition burned fiercely, and thousands of illusions were swept away. Nimrod gazed at the shadow blade, his spiritual growth growing slower and slower. The golden fist collided with the shadowy blade, and the deck shattered rapidly. A shadow spread, enveloping the two of them. Nimrod's eyes narrowed, and the spirituality of the shadow blade ceased to grow. The spirituality of the Mentor of Disorder erupted once again without reservation, its terrifying will sweeping across the land. The thousands of devils who had gathered screamed as they were torn to pieces. Be'lakor stumbled backward, his shadow shattering and falling like a torn curtain. You! Nimrod lunged forward, grabbed Be'lakor's right wrist with his right hand, and twisted it forcefully. Click! His wrist snapped, exploding into a pool of blood mist. Nimrod grasped the shadow blade, and the recovered fragment of the relic shone with a brilliance far surpassing its former glory. With a flap of his golden wings, he soared into the air. His arm swung and slammed into Be'lakor's head. Bang! How could I possibly lose? Be'lakor roared in defiance, his body exploding, a waterfall of flesh and blood splattering onto the ground. My lord! Braut cried out hoarsely. The great master of shadows had actually been defeated by Nimrod. Triple galaxy. Tens of thousands of devils screamed as they were lifted up and sent flying into the dazzling vortex. The void vanished instantly, and the Dusk Raiders, fighters were astonished to find that the terrifying distortion creatures had disappeared without a trace. The burning remnants of the void reflected in their eyes, leaving them no doubt that they had just experienced a fierce and brutal battle. Kasadi hangs on the wall, looking up. Lord Nimrod was too powerful, he defeated such a powerful supernatural being. Menkara looked up, not doubting Lord Nimrod's victory, even though the outcome of the fate strings had yet to be revealed. Lord Nimrod once again defeated his enemies in a way that defied fate. He had been trying to glean Lord Nimrod's winning strategy using his Black Raven skills, but could only catch fragmented glimpses. He watched the battle unfold, yet remained unaware of its progress. Nimrod stared at the roaring figure in the shadows and shook his head slightly. Be'lakor, I gave you a chance, but you failed. He felt a stinging sensation in his head, as Be'lakor, who had recovered most of his power and manipulated some of the power of the four Chaos Gods, was defeated by his spiritual power 3 times in a row, causing him discomfort. It was worth it. With a thought, black mist appeared in his palm, and the shadow blade vanished into thin air. This was a truly unexpected bonus. Be'lakor descended to earth through the shadow blade, and a portion of his power merged with the shadow blade, remaining within it even after his exile. These are the best ingredients for potions. Nimrod's gaze fell upon Ultramar, his chance for promotion was about to arrive. 1 greater than 1075 Lord Nimrod will surely respond to Horus's rebellion. Chapter 1075 Lord Nimrod will surely respond to Horus's rebellion. At the same moment that the transport ship, Word-bearers, crashed into the airspace above Armatura and collided with the Ultramarines fleet, Barabbas d'Antioch of the Iron Warriors greeted Warsmith Idax Krand at the Schaldenhold fortress he had built. During his cleansing of his home planet, he released 4,250 Olympians. He was subsequently exiled to the planet Demontines. Warsmith, the newly appointed Warsmith Krand, commander of the 14th Battalion, greeted his former commander with a cold salutation. Clan. Barabbas did not mention the other person's new position. The 51st Fleet sends its greetings, and I would like to introduce you to Sage Gladys and Sons of Horus, said Hasdruba Salapis, the company commander. Krand's tone grew increasingly cold. Barabbas waved his hand dismissively. What are the Emperor's orders? D'Antioch, you must know that every word of the Warmaster is law. Krand raised his uneven eyebrows. We've brought new commands for Primer and Warmaster. Barabbas sensed that Krand no longer showed him respect. Demontini is a key point on a trade route, used by both merchants and pirates. They brought the nightmarish news here months ago. An unusual civil war has broken out within the Empire, which means the death of Emperor's children. I've had enough of this. You're wasting our time, Serapis warned. That's right. Krand's lips parted. D'Antioch, your assistant mission is over. Your men will be reassigned to serve Warmaster. You must participate in the attack on Terra. Clan, think about what you're doing. The Emperor is engrossed in his research, and the Empire no longer needs the parliament and bureaucratic politics he established during his seclusion, Salapis scoffed. We need a leader to lead a meaningful expedition. I am the Warsmith, and you must obey my legitimate title, Krand roared. I want you to hand over command immediately. What if I refuse? Barabbas questioned. You will become a traitor to Primarch and Warmaster, and your fortress will be reduced to dust. Barabbas stepped forward and gazed at his former subordinate. Company Commander Krand, this is a fortress of Iron Warriors. It will never serve the rebellious Warmaster. I and it are loyal to the Emperor. And remember, Warsmith's Schaldenhold will never fall. Get out of here now, with Horus's heretic dogs. Warsmith Krand's oceanic herd spewed forth a tidal wave of stormbirds, blanketing the surface of Demontini. They traversed the cave system, unleashing a barrage of cannon fire. A barrage of artillery fire tore through the acid storm, and devastating barrages slammed into the ground, blasting the mysterious door area into ruins like a plowshare sweeping away a thorn in the side. The Iron Warriors then landed and advanced toward Fort Schaldenhold. Barabbas ordered the activation of the giant pumps to detonate the natural lake shore. The raging black pus flooded the cave base, submerged the shallows, and swept through the steel cannon forest. With his command, the blazing flames ignited a torch on the ground. Inside the fortress's observation platform, Barabbas gazed out the window. The artillery platform spewed flames, blasting the clan's Stormbird vehicle into wreckage. The traitors' attack came again 4 days later, and Titan and Adeptus Mechanicus, war machines emerged from the cave. Cannons pounded the fortress, flashes of light covering the sculpted rocks. His enhanced vision peered into the distance, where Clan and his Olympians appeared. Their eyes met, and one brother's body was splattered with the blood of the other until it dried. Barabbas turned his gaze back indoors, where Schaldenhold's sketches covered the funnel-shaped sloping walls. His annotations overshadowed the magnificent design diagrams. He picked up a quill pen and marked a series of numbers and symbols on the outer perimeter of the fortress, marking the irregular areas with his pen. Z-001, 18. Y-001, 14. Inside the fortress, each level and each outpost has a bunker cell, providing an evacuation point for the Iron Warriors. Each cell has secret ammunition supplies, as well as nutritional porridge, water, and basic medical and communication equipment. Each bunker's individual compartment was designed differently to ensure that no single weak point would be repeatedly discovered, or even in every shot fired. Both the angle and the curvature need to be constantly adjusted. Each bunker provided his outnumbered garrison with time to recover, thwarting any attempt by Clan to achieve a swift victory until the entire fortress was reduced to ruins. My lord. Tower Rashi's voice rang out on the sound array channel. Enemy Titan spotted from E6 lookout tower, identified as Imperial class. Barabbas looked up at the video screen, his brain racing with calculations, then raised his glove and quickly tapped on the screen. A scarlet screen popped up on the video screen. Barabbas removed his gauntlet and placed it on top. As the destruction process was initiated, a mushroom cloud rose to the southeast of Fort Schaldenhold. Amidst the rising flames, Barabbas stared at the colossal creature as it staggered around. His machine erupted in streaks of black flame as he departed with heavy steps. Barabbas frowned. Although he had repelled the Emperor-class Titan, he had also exposed one of his major trump cards. He quietly reduced the overall perimeter defense time by 5 hours. Barabbas stared at the screen. After the highway was burned to ashes, warhounds stopped in his tracks, and the soldiers of the 51st Expeditionary Fleet, Natamaru, the 4th Legion, surged toward the city walls like a tide. The firing ports on the elevated platform spewed out a barrage of bullets, shredding the rebellious mortals to pieces. The blood clots of the dead were crushed by the combat boots, and the Iron Warriors launched their attack after exhausting the defenders' ammunition. A barrage of cannon fire erupted, unleashing wave after wave of volleys at Schaldenhold, pulverizing the sharp, angular walls. Barabbas stared at the approaching torrent of steel. 8th Squad, you're about to be surrounded. Retreat immediately. The 1st Squad of the Sons of Dantioch is dispatched. In the southeast of the fortress, the floor beneath the ground has been turned up. The monsters, genetically modified by Barabbas Dantioch, poured out, naked and covered in scratches. Driven by adrenaline, a body a mixture of hatred and fanatical loyalty wielded a heavy hammer topped with diamonds, which crashed into the spearheads of the Iron Warriors. The heavy hammer slammed into the ceramic steel armor, sending sparks flying. Iron Warriors raised their power axes, their roar echoing through the chaotic horde of giants. A dozen or so enormous corpses crashed to the ground. A son of Dantioch ruthlessly smashed through the corpses of other modulated giants, his black face contorted in a ferocious roar as he reached out and grabbed an Iron Warrior. His right arm, bulging out, encircled the neck armor, while the muscles in his left arm bulged, tearing the Iron Warriors' limbs beyond recognition. The Iron Warriors' bodies shattered within the power armor. Barabbas stared at the screen as the harmony monster he had created vanished rapidly. He was never an apothecary, and the monster weapons he created were inferior to those of the Astartes. They were enormous and incredibly strong, but they lacked the mindset of the Astartes and the fighting instincts of the World Eaters. Their only advantage is the shorter training period, which allows them to persevere longer in this brutal war. Barabbas had already foreseen that his uniquely designed fortress would inevitably fall to the overwhelming Iron Warriors. But his steadfastness will delay the traitors' attack, even if it's a year, a month, a day, or even a minute or a second. His valiant efforts will allow the Emperor to reinforce Terra's defenses before the storm arrives, and will also garner support from the Loyalists to respond to the traitors' attack. Lord Nimrod will surely respond to Horus's rebellion. My lord, Tower Rasha's voice rang out again. My lord, the Auspex detection array has detected a warp signal. A fleet has jumped into the real world. Barabbas said expressionlessly, confirm identity. Quote, Raven Guard, and Salamanders. 1076 I beat Guilliman to Dantioch, but should I light the Pharos Lamp Tower? The Raven, the flagship of the 89th Raven Guard Company. Company Commander Alistair Rorschach stood on the bridge named after his title. Nikon Sharokin stood beside him. Yura, Fleet, Sabik, and Vaughn don't believe in the Iron Warriors. During the voyage, Nikon served as a liaison officer on the Sisyphus for an extended period, where he met with Ulok Brandon, the commander of the 65th Clan Company of the Iron Hands, and Flet Samadika and Sabik Wayland of the Iron Fathers. He had a casual relationship with Cassian Vaughn of Salamanders, referring to him by his familiar first name and distant last name, respectively. They don't understand why we went out of our way to come to Demontini to save the traitor's offspring. Don't forget the bullets the Iron Warriors fired at us. My lord's oracle must be fulfilled. Alistair thought silently. He can serve Lord Nimrod. The communications officer's voice rang out. Company commander, communication connection established. Barabbas d'Antioch, I am Alistair Rorschach. Rorschach. Barabbas's voice was as hard as steel. I am fighting a traitor. Did you bring orders from the Emperor and Lord Korax? No. Alistair's voice left Barabbas slightly disappointed. I bring Lord Nimrod's orders. Lord Nimrod. Lord Nimrod commands you. That's right, Warsmith, Alistair said. Lord Nimrod already has his plans, and he needs your talent and skill. He said your hands could help him win. The lines on Barabbas's face were smoothed as he recalled his conversation with Foryx, the head of the Trident, when he was still within his father's inner circle. Foryx once said, Lord Nimrod should be the Warmaster, he can soothe his father's anger. I am willing to serve Lord Nimrod. Barabbas looked around at the blueprints and said, prepare for large-scale teleportation. He walked up to the control platform and said, I will send the traitor to hell. In Warsmith's war philosophy, the last place to fall in a siege must be built first. Because he always believed in preparing for destruction that might come at any time. The first site built in Schaldenhold was located at the top of the cave, on top of the bedrock of the fortress. The control platform in front of him was connected to two important initiators. One is a teleportation device that requires power from the engine. The other is a detonator, which is connected to the weakest point of the foundation by a metal wire. He turned on his communicator and gave instructions to Iron Guard. Tower Lash, prepare teleportation. Barabbas finally connected with Idris Kran's communication channel. Company commander, I'm going to give you one last lesson. Quote, I told you before that this fortress will never serve the will of the Warmaster. Also, what I told you before about how Schattenhold will never fall is wrong, it will fall. D'Antioch, listen to me, I will break through it. When Barabbas heard his former subordinate's ambitious reply, he knew that his final plan had succeeded. Outside the city of Schaldenhold, Warsmith Idex Kran gazed at the rusty shell of the Imperial-class battleship. Urged on by him, the god of vengeance stepped back into the battlefield, his spinning turbine lasers slicing through the fortress walls. The beam of light swept across the southern wall of Schaldenhold, and ashes fell in the wind. Amidst the thick smoke, the Iron Warriors poured into the city. A smirk appeared on his lips. D'Antioch was a thing of the past, Warsmith was now him. Kran shook his cloak, then strode forward toward the city wall. Rumble. The enormous explosion was deafening. The bedrock tore apart, and pieces of Schaldenhold fortress fell from the top of the cave. Billions of tons of rock and bizarrely shaped structures crashed to the bottom of the cave, burying Emperor-class titans and thousands of Iron Warriors in the fallen fortress. Kran was thrown to the ground. He rolled over and got up, gazing at the ruins. D'Antioch, is this your choice? To perish together with your fortress? You are too weak. On the Raven's teleportation platform, Barabbas and his guards stepped off the platform. He looked at Alistair as he approached. 496 Iron Warriors will serve Lord Nimrod. Alistair opened his arms. Welcome. I have prepared 3 decks for you to rest on. Barabbas nodded and led his men toward the elevator. Nikon stepped out of the shadows. Should I keep an eye on them? No need, Alistair shook his head. Head to Mandeville Point immediately. He strode toward his dormitory, set up the Euclidean rune, clasped his hands together in reverse, and prayed to the Black Emperor. As he prayed for the 5th time, black mist rose out of nowhere and swallowed Alistair's figure. Nimrod leaned back on the throne, listening to Alistair's report. D'Antioch still managed to destroy an Emperor-class Titan. Nimrod remembers that D'Antioch led the loyal Iron Warriors, who held out for 366 standard Terra days in Schattenhold. Finally, he was persuaded by Nicholas, one of the 4 heroes of Mordor, to abandon the fortress. He detonated the fortress, destroyed an Emperor-class Titan, and killed thousands of rogue Iron Warriors. I defeated D'Antioch before Guilliman, and more Iron Warriors survived, almost half a company. However, it won't be so easy for Guilliman to light up the Tower of Lights in Pharos and erect a second Astronomicon in Macragge. Should I light up Pharos? Lighting up the Pharos Tower is a viable way to gather the new recruits trained by Luther. The Dark Angels bred by the corrosion gene seed of the Nation of Disorder were estimated to number 70,000, which is a considerable force. This is almost identical to the Dark Angels under Ryan's command. The Dark Angels were not concentrated in any one war zone, but scattered throughout the galaxy, waging a holy war to cleanse the aliens. In Nimrod's memory, there were only 70,000 Dark Angels under the banner of Leonmore during the Salamas expedition. Moreover, he can use this opportunity to rally his loyalists scattered across the galaxy, and may even acquire Pharos's Catan shard in the future. But Nimrod also knew that lighting the Pharos Tower would attract the attention of the Great Devourer, which was lurking outside the galaxy with its psionic signal. Although Fenris's Kraken and the spirit-eating bees, which feed on psychers, are likely Tyranids scattered throughout the galaxy and out of contact with the will of the Great Devourer, it suggests that he is not completely ignorant of the galaxy, but they were not his primary targets before. Once the Pharos lamp tower is lit, it means that 10,000 years later, there will be an endless enemy. Nimrod collected his thoughts and said, I understand. When the Raven carried Barabbas Dantioch and other Iron Warriors into the warp, their Gene Father, Perturabo, arrived in the Western Galactic. He boarded the Stormbird and headed to the First Legion's flagship, Unyielding Truth. Stormbird slowly landed on the flight deck, and Perturabo led Trident off the deck. Perturabo, Lion L. Johnson, accompanied by Kaz Wayne, strode over to greet them. 1077 The Emperor must select a new Warmaster as soon as possible. Lion L. Johnson stands in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the alien creation in the distance. The alien Void Fortress is more magnificent than the Gloriana-class battleship, and even Dornay's phalanx is not as large as it. Perturabo nodded. I discovered its traces before you did. But, he paused, without mentioning Olympia. But I returned to the Empire to handle affairs. But I found it first, Ryan asked, turning the question to him. I heard Horus started a rebellion. Perturabo knew that Yane had been lingering on the western edge of the galaxy for a long time, and that Typing Sector was the main direction of the Warmaster expedition. Most worlds sided with Warmaster, and the isolation of interstellar communication base stations was the most severe. Coupled with interference from Warmaster's so-called allies, Ryan's understanding of the Empire's situation was still based on his experience before Istvan V. That's right, Dorn ordered us to go to Istvan V. Quote, when I heard about Horus's rebellion, I knew his path would eventually lead to Terra, Ryan said astutely. Even if he somehow defeated the Iron Warriors and the other legions, he cannot claim a complete victory as long as the Imperial Palace remains intact. If he wants to win, he needs to put Terra under a long and costly siege. Perturabo glanced at Ryan and praised him with a smile. My brother, your strategic plan is correct. You can defeat Horus without directly confronting him. I'm starting to think that the Warmaster's crown has been given to the wrong person, he said slyly. A smile appeared on Ryan's serious face. Brother, what do you mean by that? However, thank you anyway. I thought. Before he could hear, Nimrod, Perturabo spoke up, would you like to come with us to Istvan? He might be able to lure Ryan into a trap. Not yet. Ryan shook his head. I must return to Prandium as soon as possible. You know, Nimrod's legion suffered heavy losses after encountering Herod. I will prepare them for the trip to Terra after cleaning them. Before I embarked on this journey, I thought that apart from you, it was best if none of my other brothers knew that I was here. I don't want them to think I have ulterior motives for doing this. A prudent decision, Perturabo praised. Ryan turned and stared at Perturabo. I beg you to believe me. What I am about to say is not for honor or power, but for the benefit of the Empire. Horus is the Emperor's most beloved son, and it was destined for him to become a Warmaster. I have never questioned this decision. Now that he has betrayed the Empire, if the Great Crusade wants to continue, the Emperor must select a new Warmaster as soon as possible. Perturabo nodded thoughtfully. Of course. So we've reached an agreement. Ryan looked at him expectantly. Perturabo nodded vigorously. This arrangement is beneficial to both of us. Very good, Ryan smiled again. Then the alien fortress will belong to you. Of course, there is one more condition. What? Perturabo raised an eyebrow. You must promise me that it will be used properly. Perturabo's eyes gleamed like polished iron. Ryan, I promise. At the same moment that Lion led the Dark Angels on their voyage, leaving the Black Void Fortress to Perturabo, on the surface of Githak Prime, the chapter master of the 14th chapter of Night Lords. Mosax gazes ahead. Almost no trace of the Empire's colonies remains here. The planet's surface appears to have transformed into organic matter. Each building has countless branch pipes that intersect to form a three-dimensional network spanning 200 cubic kilometers. Large honeycomb structures are embedded in the three-dimensional network, with scattered tendrils tangled on the outside, as if they were once attached to something. The large, leaf-like platforms are situated in different locations, each with a different angle of inclination. Reconnaissance team. As Mosax gave the order, streaks of midnight blue, trailing flames, leapt onto the sharp plain where there were no other fungal communities around. Sir, no living beings have been found. Sir, no bodies of the colonists have been found. Quote. After hearing a series of reports of finding nothing, Mosax gave the order, advance. His boots slammed into the ground, splattering oily organic matter everywhere. Apothecary of White Scars, Narsen, who was completely encased in armor, followed behind him. They are very good at hiding, as if they do not exist in three-dimensional space. Whatever they are, the xenomorphs must be purified. Mosax walked to a thick city wall. He raised his hand and placed it on it, applying slight pressure with his fingers, but the city wall did not budge. Mosax flicked his hand, and the chitinous substance slowly drifted down. They have some talent in architecture. Blow it up. The demolition team quickly stepped forward and pinned the bomb to the wall. They activated the robot, which sped backward amidst blinding runes. The miniature nuclear fusion reactor detonated the bomb, and with a bright flash, the alien material exploded into ashes, drifting away in the wind. Boom! The wall was blown open, revealing a gap. Mosax pressed the rune, and the moment the hissing field activated, his shoulder squeezed in. The interior of the building resembles a honeycomb, with walkways filled with distortion along the edges and pods placed around it. A blinding yellow light entered my eyes. It was the core of the planet. Light surged forth, striking the crystal structure suspended hundreds of meters above the ceiling. Smoke filled the area around the crystal, but there was no sign of any alien creature. They are truly a bunch of cowardly rats hiding their heads and tails. Mosax spat and led the honor guard into the corridor. The muzzle of the gun swept warily across the corridor, which widened and narrowed erratically, while combat boots trod across the empty area. Door 6. Following Narsen's suggestion, Mosax looked toward a large door of irregular shape. Hypnotist, Narsen activated spirit vision. Its lines are contracting and bending slightly. It's like it's breathing, twisting as it senses our threat. My senses can't lock onto it. Its appearance is strange. It is constantly changing, showing us its new look. Narsen, eyes may deceive us, but firepower will not. Mosax looked at the assault team. Break it. The Night Lords activated their thunder hammers, raised their howling shields, and strode toward the door. Bang bang bang. Hammer after hammer blow struck the great door. The debris drifted in the wind, and a clump of fine fibers floated in the hydrogen-rich airflow. My lord, you have broken through. Mosax walked forward, while Narsen stared intently at the large door, where he saw pentagonal bubbles rising on the wall. Thump thump thump. Greater than 1078 extra-dimensional reality beings beyond the fourth dimension. As Narsen walked along the great door, his hypnotist, spiritual intuition was suddenly triggered. He looked around, and his long-term study of Euclidean rune cultivated his sense of geometric space, which made him keenly aware of the anomaly. Mosax, the exterior outline of the room does not match the interior space. Mosax immediately brought up the tactics interface and retrieved the data for comparison. The aliens possess psychic powers. Narsen thought for a moment, that's possible. He followed his spiritual intuition toward the light and came to a wart-like blister, gazing at the alien's withered body. Here, Mosax walked over with his sword, staring at the corpse inside, its long, thin limbs tightly wrapped around its slender body. Apart from a small mouth, there are no obvious facial features on its long, narrow head. His long arms and legs have two more joints than human limbs. What's most peculiar about him is that he has no muscle fibers, only crystalline bones, and is nourished by dull blood. Mosax frowned. They were dead before we got here. Narsen suddenly sensed something and turned around abruptly. Hypnotist's eyes gleamed with a pale gold, and things that were previously unrecognizable gradually became clear. Layers of indescribable shadows intertwined and twisted in the air. The bolt roared, and a dense barrage of bullets shot into the sky. The aliens twisted and contorted, predicting the trajectory of the shells and causing them to slip around. The curved claws, trailing condensed hydrogen mist, slashed down. The ceramic steel was broken. Claws pierced the heads of the four Night Lords. Mosax leapt into the air, his power sword spinning as it slashed at the hazy creature shrouded in shadow. Crack! Disruption field tore open the veil of shadows, revealing a gray, withered body. Mosax spins resiliently, its dark blue blade biting through the broken body. Blood mist splattered. Whoosh! One by one, the shadows faded rapidly, and all signs of existence vanished abruptly. The Night Lords ceased their attack, their eyes scanning their surroundings for any hidden shadows. Hypnotist, staring at the rapidly fading shadow, is a being of a higher dimension. What? Mosax pressed. The universe that we can usually capture includes 4 dimensions: length, width, height, and time, but they are outside of those 4 dimensions. Warp creatures. Narsen shook his head, recalling Lord Nimrod's teachings during the Second Randan War in Shana 2. Warp is independent, it is a supernatural realm. I mean the real world we live in, which has more dimensions. We enter warp through some of these dimensions, but the dimensions in which the aliens exist do not belong to warp. Their existence is as real as the weight of the blade in your hand. Mosax thought for a few seconds, then said irritably, I don't understand. Imagine if you lived in a 3-dimensional world, instead of our 4-dimensional space. There is only length, width and time there, so you have no concept of height, you don't know what up and down are. But the inability to perceive it does not mean that it does not exist. I just want to know how to purify them. Mosax swung his sword. Gravity weapons and thermal weapons. It should work, but there are better options, Narsen said. Our Lord would be interested in them. They are very unusual, and Lord Nimrod would be happy to receive these gifts. Gravity weapon. My hunters will fire needles to capture them. The aliens must be completely eradicated. Mosax roared. Narsen gazed at Mosax and said slowly, that will only leave behind a field of corpses, and many more worlds will be invaded by them in the future. Give the specimen to Lord Nimrod, and he will figure out a way to completely eliminate this alien. Mosax lowered his head, his gaze sweeping over the 4 corpses. If the Astartes are killed, and if they all struggle to kill the xenomorphs, then most of the Imperial worlds and colonies will be unable to withstand the xenomorph attacks. Good. Gravity cannon. Amidst the deafening roar, the heavy fire support team deployed 3 gravity cannons indoors. Narsen approached the alien's corpse again, while Hypnotist followed his spiritual intuition and looked at the shadow hanging from the darkness ceiling. Above, bang bang bang, the gravity weapon vibrated, and a pulse force field shot into the sky. The aliens screamed, and they were pulled into reality, solidifying into physical form. They opened their mouths, revealing a mouthful of sharp teeth. They writhed and struggled, unable to break free. Capture. The white scars all raised their guns, and Nuceria's anesthetic injections flew into the air. Whoosh whoosh. One syringe after another was inserted into the alien's body, causing their arms to droop, their legs to curl up, and their heads to be buried inside. It shrunk into a thick, pure black ball, rolled around, and fell to the ground with a thud. Mosax curled his lip. They look like bastards. In the 4th level of the Nation of Disorder space, Nimrod leans against the throne, listening to the reports from Lord William Wood and Narsen of the 12th chapter. We captured 52 aliens, and brought back 18 corpses, as well as 36 pieces of remains damaged to varying degrees. All the other aliens have disappeared. No matter what methods we use, we can't find them. They are the Sesso demons. Nimrod's mind raced through relevant information. The Sesso demon was a superdimensional being beyond the 4th dimension. Their largest housing in the real world is the Ghoul Cluster. The Death Ghosts chapter, who will be stationed in this star system in the future, often clash with them. Losing patience, they finally decided to take the initiative and destroy the settlement, but upon arriving on the planet, they found nothing. In the 41st millennium, the expedition launched by Grand Marshal Helbrecht of the Black Templars also ended in failure, with their expedition failing to reach their destination in 9836-18. Enraged, the Black Templars attempted to destroy the gas giant but failed. They then spent a long time bombarding the planet's atmosphere. Narush, the 4th company commander of the Death Ghost squad who was traveling with them, thought it was pointless to do so, since the Sesso demons would always reclaim their homeland after the enemy left. With a thought, he sent the information about the Sethor to the 2 of them and decided to distribute it to the entire Legion later. He intends to bring Ghoul Stars under his command, which will inevitably lead to battles with Sissimo in the future. Mentor of Disorder, open spirit vision, revealing a dazzling spiritual radiance. Sequence 4 level potion materials, should be the main materials. A certain degree of prophetic ability, spatial concealment, and interdimensional travel, it should be the door, pathway the main material for Sequence 4, Secret Sorcerer. With a thought from Nimrod, the black mist surged, engulfing the paralyzed Sesso demons and sending them to the 1st level of space. At the same moment he sends the 2 back to the real world, Lorgar Aurelian destroys Robert Gilliman's Armatura. Fidelitas Lex leapt into warp, joined forces with Angron, and launched a Shadow Crusade. Greater than 1079 he is not Primarch. Robert Gilliman gazes at a holographic star map from the Macraga's radiance. A trail of crimson blood was marked by blurry star language communications. The future he envisioned for Ultramar, Armatura, has been destroyed. The embers of war have burned away this jewel of the future. His gaze shifted to Kaz. That's the world under Nimrod's control. Around Ultramar, there is no world like Kaz. It is both an industrial world and a dazzling pearl. He just fell behind Nimrod. Nimrod's foresight was astonishing, almost prophetic. How will Nimrod break out of this predicament? Gilliman tried to adopt Nimrod's mindset, recalling his contact with the War Council, his comradeship in the Second Randan War, and the lines of text in Shadow King. Finally, the words of Nimrod, relayed by former Chief Librarian Dio Proms during his report to the Council of Nicaea, flashed through his mind. Has any warrior dropped his weapon? To regard Psykers as evil is to forget the Empire's dependence on them. Gilliman took a deep breath, his abdomen throbbing slightly. The wound caused by Erebus has not yet fully healed. He spoke slowly. Marius. Chapter Master of Second Chapter. Marius Gage stood with his legs together. Father. Reorganization of Librarian. Gage stepped forward. Father, the Emperor has issued a decree in Nicaea. I know. Gilliman nodded and looked at Gage. But we need librarians to deal with the psionic tactics the traitors are using against the 500 worlds. Therefore, we must take up the most useful weapons. I understand. Gage gripped his gauntlet tightly. Gilliman's gaze returned to the holographic image. Look at the holographic image. What conclusions can you draw based on the known information? Gage stared at a winding path scattered among the crimson runes. He wants to destroy Armatura. That's right, Armatura is the future, and Armatura is the present. Armatura, the heart of Ultramar's star-studded kingdom, is a capital city with a bright future, yet its soul is engulfed in war. Armatura is just as important as the other two. It is bone marrow that provides the body with a constant supply of fresh blood. It is the most important recruit training base of Ultramarines, and Legion thrives because of it. Fidelitas Lex. The Crimson Giant's eyes turned orange. You have emerged from the shadows. Now Gilliman and his kingdom know your purpose. Now, how will you break through Amatura's defenses? Lorgar raised his arms high. Did you hear that? Magnus closed his eyes slightly. He smelled the scent of a storm, just like Prospero before its destruction. Armatura is the syncopated note of the warp song, the beat beneath the rhythm. Lorgar raised his hands, conducting the invisible chorus he was directing. Can you hear the pain stirring the tides? Can you hear the black tide of millions of hearts beating? Their rhythmic drumbeats resounded loudly. Look, a ship is burning fiercely in the atmosphere of Olympus, and the cries of the dead echo throughout the Sea of Souls. Look, the wreckage of a warship has crashed to the ground, carrying the screams of hundreds of thousands of souls into the Sea of Souls. He stared into the narrowed, one-eyed man's eyes. Brother, I understand what you're after now. Tears welled in his eyes. Every painful cry of every life, every soul that dies in the burning world, weakens the veil between the physical world and warp. The tides of the Sea of Souls can be altered by mortal hands, and I am reordering the warp. Armatura was the starting point of the storm. I brought it into the material world, and I plunged the entire sector into suffering. His eyes gleamed with golden light. Tell me, you heard a million devils shrieking and laughing, eager to appear in those burning worlds. Magnus's avatar felt the web behind the material world being tightened, and it wasn't as exhilarating as his brother had described. He is enjoying disrupting the natural order and recoding the universe. The golden light stung Magnus's single eye, and he looked away. You can tear reality and warp apart as you please, but you can't kill Armatura. Armatura not only has a powerful fleet, but also a Romulus-class star fort. You have lost all of your Abyssal-class warship. How are you going to break through Armatura without them? Zadkiel, Lorgar stroked the scripture tattoo on his cheek. I thought he would see the truth and that he wouldn't be held back by past friendships. But he disappointed me. Magnus's ever-changing eyes were stained red by the burning warship. Your fleet is dying out. My dear brother, you underestimate me, Lorgar laughed. This war may have caught you and others off guard, but for me, it has been planned for half a century. The true holy war is about to begin, and our father's dream of a perfect empire will come to an end. Magnus suddenly looked up, his eyes growing increasingly intense, turning a blood-red color. When I need help, I will summon new tools to enhance the chorus. Lorgar bowed deeply. Praise be to Blood God. He enjoys Armatura's bloody tunes. He slowly rose to his feet, making a gesture with his hands. The curtain tore open, and Magnus's ethereal avatar instinctively closed its eyes. The abyss rift slowly formed, and the crimson behemoth slowly entered the real universe. It wasn't a mountain of junk like a spaceship wreck, but a blood-red spear. Blood-red tendrils coiled around its sharp tower, and its Jung Ning, ferocious, hideous face hissed out. Conqueror's Flight Deck. Khan walked past a series of cone-shaped, ridge-like fearclaw drop pods, while the Dark Mechanicum's tech priest chanted loudly. He approached Mars representative Wilcorder, Archmagos. The wiry Cordator's 5 gleaming black iron mechanical legs twitched as he arrived in Conqueror on the orders of the Warmaster to help the World Eaters modify their machine spirits, making them more vicious and more in line with the World Eaters' war strategy. Khan, Argel Tal. Seeing Archmagos resume his patrol, Khan laughed loudly to his friend beside him. There are many enemies. Provided by Warmaster's messenger, this is a statistical document Ultramar submitted to him years ago. 4,900 reservists, 1 billion soldiers. And there's the unpredictable Titan, Adeptus Mechanicus. Skitarii, and armored forces. Happy hunt. In the Sawtooth Sun chapter of Word Bearers, Argel Tal, the company commander of the 7th Company, extends his arm, and their armors collide. Don't be as pathetic as you were in Prospero. No more. Khan gripped the giant axe, recalling that powerful white figure. Hasik Noyan Khan. Bastard. Angren's voice drowned out the roar of the flight deck. Argel Tal curled up and pounded on the deck, his figure gradually becoming distorted. A silver mask, distortion, and enormous, ugly black wings rise. Bastard, Angron reveled in the humiliation. Did you receive my orders? Khan stepped between the two and reminded them, Aegel. Devil Sophin yielded, he stood up, and his helmet was restored to the Mark IV style. Go down and kill them. He is not Primarch. Argel Tal's voice entered Khan's mind. He is my Primarch, Khan murmured to himself. Primarch should be inspiring. I have personally witnessed Sanguinius and Lehman Russ. A series of psychic whispers entered Khan's mind. Recall that you saw Horus and Dorn, and imagine that you were standing before the golden statue of Eurydice. Think again about the warlock lords you despise, Nimrod and Magnus, that you witnessed. Ra runs in our blood, but I've never had that instinctive awe for Angron. He's a broken butcher, and I know you feel that way too. Yes, I think so too, and everyone in World Eaters does, Khan confessed to his friend, a sentiment he had never shared with anyone before. Are you just going to put up with this? Argel Tal questioned. What can we do? Kill our fathers. Khan said helplessly. When Lorgar led you to worship the Emperor, did you kill him? Seeing his friend remain silent, Khan continued, we had hoped to be broken together, so that we could be with our father. Didn't it work? Argel Tal's tone was full of sympathy, but it hurt him more than the mockery. Khan shook his head and strode towards the gunboat. He once considered Galan Surak's sonic device to be a cowardly act of rebellion. But he later realized that World Eaters were heading down a deadly path of bloodlust. He had considered making changes. He obeyed Warmaster's orders to go to Prospero, but the device had been destroyed by a pack of wolves, and he refused to be manipulated by Warlock. 1080. Nimrod and Gilliman will be separated, they will not participate in the game. Lorgar Aurelian stood amidst the dust, while the enemy Titan raised his arm, the devastating blow of Vulcan's colossal bolt cannon drowning out the symphony he was composing in Amatra. He wielded the Illuminarum scepter forged for him by Phoenix, and his psychic fury slammed Ultramarines against the rocks, crushing him into a bloody pulp. Warhound Titan crouched as it charged through the dust cloud, unleashing a deluge of firepower upon Primarch. Lorgar's armor was covered in frost, and he raised his left hand, sending a boulder the size of a Gabriel Predator flying. Boom! The rocks slammed into the cockpit of the wolf head, and the Warhound Titan slowly collapsed. The Word Bearers and a few sensible World Eaters cheered and roared as they continued their offensive. The Warhound Titan advanced through the ruins, its Vulcan bolt cannons roaring across the battlefield. Captain Maxilian Dellant leaned forward, the cables connecting the aircraft being pulled and ripped. Main ion cannon, fire at full power. Captain, the remaining capacitor only allows us to fire 4 rounds. Execute the order, unleash all the ammunition. His voice trembled. When we run out of ammunition, we'll stomp the enemy to death. Yes, Captain. The controller, Kai, quickly turned the 7 dials. Ion cannon ready. He pulled the left trigger. The sun shone on the gray surface of Amatra. Nuclear fusion ionizes at temperatures of hundreds of millions of degrees, and ion cannons emerge with comet-like tail flames. The air burned fiercely, and the shockwave blasted the bodies of World Eaters into fragments that floated in the air. Warhound's feet are planted firmly in the ground, unleashing a torrent of fire, as if the sun were being born in Valaka. Lorgar raised Illuminarum high, and a psionic shield covered several meters around him. The molten flow poured down, burning the surrounding rocks into liquid glass. Fire! Fire! Dellant roared excitedly. The cooling fan of the steel arm discharges a large amount of steam. He must be dead. We killed a Primarch. Crush him, leave him without a complete corpse. He manipulated the control handle, raised his right foot, and stomped down heavily. Thump. Warhounds trembled, and its giant steel feet stopped in midair. Argel Tal of Word-Bearers stares at the roaring Angron in the ruins, raising his arms to hoist the machine god onto his shoulders. Every muscle in his body bulged, trying to crush the steel frame. His steel teeth clenched so tightly that the muscles in his shoulders burst with a thud. Angron grasped Titan's claws and pushed it back. Lorgar, stand up. The two Primarchs clasped hands tightly, and Angron pulled Loka up. Argel Tal looked at his friend Khan beside him. He's not a Primarch, but he's a terrible warrior. Putting aside psionic abilities, perhaps only Nimrod, Horus, and Sanguinius could defeat him. Khan shook his head. No one can beat Angron, not even Nimrod. The hunt is about to begin. He charged toward the azure wall, his battle axe raised high, while the Ultramarines, reserves formed a tight line behind full-body boarding shields. The World Eaters launched a frenzied attack on the heavily armored infantry clad in Mark I power armor, their battle lines clashing amidst deafening roars. Their bodies collided, the chainsword roared, and then dulled against the tight formation. Khan's downward slash was blocked by the shield, and another blade hissed as it came. Each World Eater must simultaneously face Ultramarines on both sides. The charging column was shattered within seconds of engaging in battle and began to stagger. Khan's eyes turned bloodshot. He roared and slammed into the enemy ranks, his spinning battle axe slicing through the diamond blue armor. Whoosh! Khan looked up and saw Argel Tal spread his wings and fly over. The Ultramarines, reserves moved slowly, trying to establish a battle line in the rear, but the swift blades of the Blessed Suns had already pierced the vulnerable back of Maxiani armor. The bodies of the Ultramarines, reserves crashed to the ground, their blood staining Amatra crimson. Fidelitas Lex. Lorgar's body and soul laughed simultaneously. His body is in Amatra. His soul crossed half the galaxy and appeared in Lupercal's court. He gazed at the giant, never-closing eye on Warmaster's chest, which moved like black veins. Horus Lupercal laughed, looking at the heavy books on the base of the column. I have to admit, I never thought it would actually work. After his defeat in Kalonit, he read the books offered by Lorgar. Simply uttering a person's name is enough to summon him to me. Word-bearers reach out and stroke the books. You've read it all. I've finished reading it, but whose skin is this? Horus asked. The bodies of Istvan III and No. 5. Horus nodded silently. How is your expedition to Ultramar going? Everything is going according to plan. Guilliman was seriously injured in Armatura. My legion is divided into 30 paths. 30 worlds have died, and the same fate is about to befall another 30 worlds. A painful sonata seeps into reality. Erebus and Cor Farron won at Armatura. Horus pressed. They believe that the devastating storm has already been born, Lorgar said with a smile. While not as magnificent as the Great Eye, nor comparable to the Great Vortex, it is a beginning. With each step the plan takes forward, it becomes more ambitious. It will cut both Guilliman and Nimrod into the eastern galaxy. Then, may I summon you to Molech now? Horus asked with a smile. Without you and Angron, I cannot win. Lorgar laughed. Horus, stop hiding your ambition. Even if you lose every brother, every legion, every warship, and even everyone who served you, you will still win. You will stand before your father's throne, and until then, you will never give up. I need your legion, otherwise I will have to summon Mortarion to Molech, Horus said seriously. Do you really think Warp's tides can drown Ultramar? I am the High Priest of the Primordial One, the spokesperson for the One Chaos, Lorgar said. False words. If the cause is not accomplished, it will all be empty talk. Lorgar walked up to Horus and said, think of the death of Istvan V. The howling of death in the world is terrifying, even more so than the Astronomicon. The Blade of Hope, blessed by the Emperor, was once the guiding light for all Imperial ships, nothing else could pierce the surging waves of the warp. With every 4 heartbeats, your army will bring destruction to a world, the painful rhythm overwhelming the Emperor's psionic beacon. So, do you understand now? The horrors and suffering of the physical universe will be brought into warp, and the screams of hundreds of millions of mortals dying will set off the warp song. He raised his hands, as if playing the piano. Just like you, I am also changing the rhythm. A change of 1 beat is enough to affect the entire melody. All the pain seeps through the veil, bringing chaos to reality. Do as you may doubt me, but those worlds that are tormented and slowly dying, their long dying cries will pass through the curtain to the other side, and that is the whole piece of music I will compose. He swung his arms violently, as if to finish playing a piece. The maturation of the destruction storm will engulf the entire eastern galaxy. Nimrod and Guilliman will be cut off and will not participate in the game. I believe you. Horus leaned forward and grasped his brother's illusory hands. At the same moment Amathra was destroyed. In the wolf's den of Hrothgar, Leman Russ tossed a book to the Wolf Lord of the Fifth Great Company. Amlodi Skarsenson. 1081 Nimrod, it's time to pay the debt. 008. M31. In the wolf den of Hrothgar, the wolf lords sat on moss-covered rocks, the air thick with the mingled smells of burnt fat and damp fur. Leman Russ raised his horn and poured the mead down his throat. Swish swish. Wolf Lord of the Fifth Great Company Amlodi Skarsen frowned as he patiently and rapidly flipped through The Shadow King. I received a letter from the Sigillite, who asked me to verify the loyalty of the Primarch brothers and, if possible, kill those who were traitors. Malkador told me that he would personally send a representative to Caliban to confirm the loyalty of the Pride, or more precisely, Luther, as Lane was still fighting Herud. He and Dorn believed that Nimrod should be excluded because he had been a potential competitor of Horus. Skarsen suppressed his disgust for Nimrod and Order Shadow. Does Great Wolf think their views are wrong? Glug. Leman Russ took a big gulp of wine and hunched over. I used to say that Nimrod would never betray me, even though I wanted to smash his face. In this era, nothing is certain, even Nimrod might betray us. Frecky and Gray opened their eyes and stood up. I once thought Horus would never betray Allfather, after all, he was Allfather's firstborn son. I presented him with Codex Omega, and gave it only to him. Horus used it, laughing as he surrounded and killed the loyalists. I heard his laughter. He approached Skarsen, and Wolf Lord stood up. The Empire cannot afford another Primarch rebellion, especially not Nimrod. Skarsen realized the heavy responsibility that the Lord of Winter and War had placed upon him. The Wolf King dispatched observation squads to accompany the other Primarchs, while Fafnir Blood Alliance led 9 men to Macragge. I will follow your command. Cause, the mouth of the Nereid River. Alanius Persson walked along the path toward his home. A blinding light pierced his eyes, and waves of fire streaked through the air. ORL looked up, silently counting the number of transport ships in his mind. 1, 2, 38. The number of transport ships has surged recently. Has something major happened? Click. Servitor Graft stopped, bringing the large truck carrying flax to a halt. Soldier Persson, you should go home. Quote. Yes, it's time to go home. Whatever happens, it's for those big shots to worry about. What does it have to do with a retired veteran like me? ORL withdrew his gaze and walked home. Graft pushed the flax toward the warehouse, glancing at the white cabin. There is no Nimrod. ORL breathed a sigh of relief, humming a little tune as he went inside. He tugged at the rope, and the gravity shower sparsely poured down rainwater. ORL frowned. Water was temporarily diverted to meet the city's surging demand. The daily water supply is only enough for drinking and irrigation, showering is a luxury. The singing reached my ears. His wife is preparing dinner. After drying himself off, ORL stepped out of the shower. Oh, it's time to get to work. OL, you're going to miss your chance. ORL gazed at the figure standing by the kitchen door. My wife is making dinner. OL, your wife is long dead. The figure slowly turned around, his handsome face repulsive. I didn't invite you in. No one has ever invited me. He poured himself a glass of milk. I have no interest in what you want to say. I really enjoy my life right now. Orr sat down at the old dining table, waiting for his wife to return from fetching the eggs. He looked at the other person sitting on the ground. No. John, get out of my house. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Perpetual shook the glass. Oh, don't do that. There are very few people like us left. If you count them on your fingers, you and I wouldn't even have enough hands to use up. We've never had enough, and now we have even less. 2. Clang. ORL stood up and overturned the table. John Grammaticus quickly stepped back, but the milk in his glass remained unaffected. That's enough, John. I don't want to get involved in anything, and I don't want to know what trouble you've brought to my house. John, I like you, but I hope I never see you again. I just want to live a good life. I'll say it again, get out. Don't be so greedy, you've already lived several lifetimes. Grammaticus shook his head. John. Grammaticus tilted her head back and drank her milk. Need I remind you? Pan-Pacific, Anato Hive City. Don't tell me that none of it matters. ORL turned his head away. That was ages ago. John, you'd better leave now, before my wife comes back. Is this the life you want? A retired soldier becoming a farmer. Simple meals and a good night's sleep. Please, you are Alanius Persson. No one has lived longer or fought more battles than you, including your lord. Grammaticus slammed the cup to the ground. You have no choice, you know. The situation has deteriorated, like a broken cup. I need you, he needs you, the entire human race needs you. ORL frowned. What happened? Horus betrayed him, and now everything is in utter chaos. He will lose without you, and if he loses, we will all lose. Who's going to lose? ORL pressed. You know who I'm talking about. Granmaticus tilted his head and looked at him. Your lord, you were his first warmaster. The war, the great war we foresaw, the war we always talk about, has broken out. ORL looked away. I don't want to get involved. I'm just a retired veteran. You are the first perpetual, whether you like it or not. Come with me and take a look, then you can make a decision. No. As soon as Orr shouted, a psionic mist enveloped the surroundings. John, where have you been? ORL looked around and saw a mess everywhere. The corpses stained the earth red. Cobalt blue and scarlet giants clashed, blood and flesh flying everywhere. He took a step forward, and the scene suddenly changed. The starry sky pierced through the porthole and came into his eyes. The bulkhead was riddled with bullet holes and bore the marks of laser burns. Millions of voices shouted and screamed, and the roar of guns and cannons was deafening. I didn't want to come here, not at all. He muttered to himself as he walked forward. Or walked into the archway, which was 20 times his height, hoping to find his way home. The dead angel lay on the ground, his golden armor riddled with cracks. His pristine white wings were crushed, and his lion skin cloak was soaked with blood. The killer's breastplate was inlaid with eye emblems, each eye staring at him with malice. His body was overflowing with power, he merely stood there, yet he corrupted the entire universe. He turned his gaze, and a scarlet light emanated from the neck guard. He gazed at Orr's soul, and at something in his hand. ORL turned around, his eyes widening in shock. He saw the hazy glory of his familiar homeland, Terrace. Humanity's home is burning fiercely. I've seen enough. Countless streaks of light flashed by. Devil spreads its wings and roars in. The bolt roared, and a barrage of bullets rained down. He was enveloped in light, and roars echoed around the light. Orl's consciousness was plunged into darkness, and a muffled voice entered his ears. I'm sorry, you shouldn't have been bombarded with so much information all at once, but we really don't have time. I've shown you where you need to go, so get moving. The journey will be very difficult, but you can do it, you have overcome many difficulties. An elegant, high Gothic voice entered his ears. I am Eldred Ulthrin, soothsayer of the Ark of Ulthwé. Alanius Persson, you must act immediately, you must do it. The fate of humanity rests in your hands. Or opened his eyes and found himself curled up in a distorted position. His arms ached, and his head felt like it had been screwed in by several screws. ORL knelt down, gagging incessantly, trying to vomit out all those terrible memories. He stood up unsteadily and slowly walked to the wall. He removed the old lasgun and skillfully replaced it with an energy cartridge. The malicious gazes flashed through Orl's mind. He knew that when John and Eldar Farseer presented him with the future, they had attracted the attention of the warp demons. This is a journey full of thorns. Nimrod, it's time to pay the debt. 1082 Lord, I'll allow you to save me. In the fourth level of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod, leaning against his throne, gave orders to the World Eaters, Chief Apothecary. Gulan Surik, you shall immediately lead the entire conscription force, leave Bert, and head to Nasera. He just received the chapter master of the first chapter of Ultramarines. Glenworthoto's prayers prompted Guilliman to summon all of Ultramar's armed forces to punish the Word-Bearers and World Eaters. Guilliman even summoned the Terra-Born, whom he had always disliked, and finally remembered Glenn, who had been left to farm in Tower Rentis. To ensure the smooth completion of the Roll of the Fallen promotion ceremony, Nimrod needed Glenn to monitor the progress with Guilliman, and Garland to stay by Angron's side. At the same time, he also knew that soon, Iron Father's Otek Moore of the Iron Hands would attack Bert, the main recruitment base of the World Eaters. He used the fleet's firepower to smash satellites into the planet, wiping out all life on the planet. This means that the rapid recruitment of cattle by World Eaters has come to an end. My lord, I have trained 18,400 conscripts, and they have all been armed with the butcher's nails that you have given them. They will fight for you. Well done. Nimrod nodded slightly. A thought suddenly crossed his mind. Before the satellite crashed, Moore had plundered a static coffin from the planet's capital, Tiradzima. The coffin bore the marks of the gene weavers who assisted the Emperor in creating the Primarch. Compared to destroying the World Eaters' recruitment base, the static coffin was Moore's primary target. Thinking of this, Nimrod ordered, take away the stasis coffin from underground. Follow your will. Fidelitas Lex. Angron stared at Lorgar, who had narrowed his eyes. What are you doing? Lorgar raised his hand, and a shimmering light hovered beneath the church dome. Hundreds of worlds hovered in the air. Angron crossed his arms. 1/5 of Ultramar. 7. That's right, Lorgar laughed. With a wave of his hand, the stars turned gray and white, rapidly plunging into darkness and death. I once lingered in a materium, where the Eldar, through their own ignorance, gave birth to a god of destruction. The Great Eye was born with Sai Landsresh, bringing together reality and the supernatural to form a sacred realm. The Empire calls it the Warp Storm, but I have a deeper understanding. Angron's arms hung down. That's enough. I don't have the patience to listen to you talk about things I'm tired of hearing. Look here. Angron followed Lorgar's gaze to a planet. It is dotted with azure oceans and lakes, and features diverse landscapes marked by green, gray, and yellow hues, as well as white poles. This is the answer you've been looking for. Angron didn't say anything more, and even Butcher's nails fell silent. His teeth clenched tightly. Nuceria. I never thought about coming back here. I don't want to, and I don't need to. Lorgar looked at him with pity. I know that the Emperor brought you among the stars, and you are no longer the same person you were before. But you will be reborn here. Lorgar raised his hand, and Armature's colorful tentacles leapt into one world after another. 100 worlds were ignited. His finger finally landed on Nuceria, a thin, hazy mist that separated the eastern Milky Way. That's the gap, that's the key. No one can get through the storm, only you and I know how to get out of the fire. Angron's teeth chattered. You could have chosen any frontier world, but you chose Nuceria. Why Nuceria? Lorgar lowered his hand. It can only be Nuceria. Not enough. Why are you so reluctant to go home? Angron groaned. I died there, and my life after that was meaningless. It means nothing to me now. Revenge. Angron's chest heaved. How do we get revenge? Can my brothers and sisters be brought back to life? The past me is dead. You put on the collar the Emperor gave you, and apart from the occasional slip-ups, you've played your role. Lorgar gestured. Now Nuceria must die, and you are the officiant at her funeral. Stop arguing with me. I'll ask, you answer, understand. Angron's hot breath slapped against Lorgar's face. The nail is leading you to your death, faster than I thought. The degenerative effects are getting worse. Your implant wasn't developed for Primarch. The more your physiological functions are repaired, the deeper it goes. I will burn this filthy world that torments you to ashes and enjoy the revenge of pretending not to care. Lorgar walked toward Angron, almost embracing him. Believe me, if there's a way to save you, I'll do anything, I swear. Even if you hate me for tearing open your deep-seated scars, my brother, I will save you. I will grant you immortality, you deserve this honor. Why? Angron's heart pounded heavily for several beats. You are my brother, and I will do everything I can to ease your pain. Lorgar's eyes stung his vision, and he paced back and forth in a state of unfamiliarity. I don't need your salvation. I am Angron, I am the devourer of worlds, I am already dead. Do you know why I follow Horus? He's a decent commander, but he's too arrogant. That's all the respect I have for complacent bastards. I don't care who sits on the Terra throne at dawn on the last day. Angron looked at Terra. I joined Horus simply because that bastard who calls himself Emperor of Mankind is far more unbearable than him. I died 100 years ago in the mountains north of the city that enslaved me, in Asia. You are too weak. Many souls are more worthy of respect than my brothers. Am I weak? Lorgar stared at Angron and whispered. I respect you, but I will never like you. Angron, unusually, pondered for a long time. I saved your life in Amatra, and that's what you owe me. Lorgar, I will allow you to save me. Conqueror. Garland and Dreger, the company commander of the Ninth Company, went to the secluded deck and awakened the ancient dreadnought. Locke, the first person in, Warhounds, slowly opened his eyes, stared at the two of them, and sorted through his fragmented memories. He has been falling into a deep sleep more and more frequently lately, maintaining his frail body. Bang! The giant steel foot slammed onto the deck, its energy field faintly glowing. Gulan, what about your promise? Every time I am awakened, I see Angron bringing a slow, but ever-deepening corruption to Legion. The laughter of the Warhounds has completely disappeared. The armor is now entirely maintained by Legion slaves. The World Eaters are empty and bewildered, they are nothing more than killing robots. Garin, completely clad in armor, declared, the time has come. We will end all of this in the world that gave birth to anger. Dreger gazed thoughtfully at Garland, a series of imposing figures flashing through his mind. Beep beep. The voice of Stormbird Squadron Commander Holes came through Dreger's communicator. Company Commander, we have reached Nuceria's orbit. 1083 before the Emperor's visit to Nimrod, he strolled through his royal city. The high-altitude tundra of Nuceria is littered with corpses. Khan crouched down and picked up a fragment, his gauntlet rubbing against the bone fragment. Don't touch it, Argel Tal warned. Don't touch anything. These skulls are a tomb. Angron's heart lies exposed here. Following his friend's advice, Khan carefully put the skeleton back. Angron clenched his fists, raised his head, and let out a mournful wail that echoed through the sky. They're all dead, my brothers and sisters. Tears streamed down her face, freezing into frost. Lorgar Aurelian cautiously approached his brother, who was licking his wounds. How do you address the enemy? The High Knights, because they are high above us, watching us die in the dust of the arena. I have never seen warriors as fine as they in my life. Jakara wielding the chains that strangle, Kallist with his sharp spear, and the great and little Osti with their whirling daggers, their smiles were brighter than the sun. Gangrene took one of Luberton's arms, yet he shouted to the High Knights, "Come on, if you dare. We were born in red sand, grew up in filth, and ate the dog shit given to us by the High Lord, but in the end we, Libertas, made those bastards pay the price." Angron lowered his head. "They are my support, just as I am their support. We will share life and death, joy and sorrow. I swear I will live and die with them. I deserve to die here. I have died here. World Eaters, Primarch is nothing but a void. This is where I belong. The greatest battle of my life has been stolen. There will be an even greater battle, my brother, I promise you," Lorgar said. "Fuck Terra. I don't fucking care about that shit Terra. I don't care about Horus or the shitty Emperor. He drew blood from his father and blood from his son, and the engine roared to life. Come here and die, you lackeys of Deja. I am the Angron of the deep pit, born of blood, raised in darkness, and I will also condemn the death of Libertas. Come on, watch my last battle." He leapt onto the boulder, and then the Emperor stole me, imprisoned me in the depths of darkness above Conqueror. I am alone in the darkness, while my brothers and sisters die here, they died without me. I swore an oath, we swore to live and die together, to fight to the very end. Together. Ah! Angron swung his chainsaw axe wildly, cleaving towards the sky. Damn Emperor. The Emperor is a bastard just like the High Knights, he's a maggot just like the High Lord. When Horus rebelled, I immediately swore allegiance to him. I swore allegiance to him because that shitty Emperor stole my glory when I deserved to die. He chewed his steel teeth until they broke, then spat out blood. This is no gift or favor, it made me a traitor. He made me betray the only oath that mattered. I am living a wretched life, while my brothers and sisters die here in vain, their bones being devoured by the wind and snow. Why did our father treat you that way? Lorgar asked, puzzled. Angron snapped out of his reverie, you have your old fogey Corferin, Leman Russ has his kin, and Ryan has Luther. But I am not like that. Did the Emperor ever send his golden-clad guards to our aid? Did he ever release the warhounds and order them to fight alongside me? Has he ever treated me like Ryan's Luther, or like the glory of Corferin? He didn't. He showed no mercy to anger. Angron leapt off the giant rock. Before the Emperor visited Nimrod, he strolled through his royal city. He also lingered in Colchis, Nocturne, and Fenris. Did he stay at my home for a week? No. There is no need to touch the slave Angron. He has no time to heal the world's wounds. He stole me from my deserved death and broke the oath I made. Angron sheathed his twin axes behind his back. Poor oathbreaker Angron. Pathetic traitor Angron. Loka's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Why? Why did he let your team die in vain? He only needs one command, and warhounds will stand by your side with a bleeding blade to save your brother. Why would he use teleportation to steal you away? Angron shook his head. I never know why, but he will repay it, just like the High Knight. I'll ask this question before I kick down his shit throne. Now I must go to Texia, to see the High Lords who claim ownership of us, and the High Knights who murdered my brothers and sisters. Lorgar nodded in agreement. There is no emotion more innocent than anger, and no ambition more righteous than revenge. Angron's eyes gleamed. Yes, my brother, revenge nourishes the soul. Dreger, the company commander of the Ninth Company, glanced at the wreckage on the ground, but he didn't touch anything and silently followed in Jean-Father's footsteps. 8 hours later, Angron walked through the black marble archway of the Texan. He had to lower his head to squeeze into the nobleman's throne room. Who is the king now? The boy on the throne looked at the giant, who wore brass armor painted in a cold red color and whose terrifying long, cable-like hair jutted out from the back of his head, and cried. Boy, are you the Lord of Dacia? The boy huddled on the throne, watching the giant approach along the steps, and cried even louder. Which family do you come from? Whose filthy blood flows in your veins? The king's guards stared in fear at the two giant axes that resembled windmills, and a woman standing before the throne answered. You are standing before Tibular of the Taurarca family. Totaka. Angron fell into recollection, this family is still in power. Never wavered. Tower Guard Commander Oshame Everell Colche stood tall, suppressing tears of fear. Totaka once bound me, I was their slave. Lorgar. As he called out, a giant with pale gold skin and a mace slung over his shoulder walked over. Come and see the descendants of the family I once served as slaves, how a great family has fallen to this state. Lorgar climbed the steps and watched as the poor child on the throne was swallowed by their shadows. You are not him, Korshai, how could you possibly be him? Impossible. Angron's iron teeth chattered. Angron Tower died 100 years ago, he fled during the war in the Teshulik Mountains. Quote. Lorgar shuddered and looked at Angron. In the brother's eyes, the life force of the living had completely vanished, leaving only endless pain and numbness. He asked coldly and numbly, he ran away. Angron Tower has escaped. Quote. Korshai kept her lips tightly shut, her slip of the tongue had enraged a terrifying beast. Explain. He led a slave revolt, abandoning them in the mountains, You're lying. Angron's giant hand pressed down on Kolshai's head, and with a pinch of his fingers, the head of the meritorious female general exploded into a pool of blood mist. Angron pointed to the nearest officer. You, speak. He wore a long black robe over his breastplate, a tradition of Nuceria. What happened during the Battle of the Dejalika Mountains? You or him, please. Bang. The headless corpse crashed down. You say. Legion swallowed hard. Angron Tower and his rebels were all slaughtered in the mountains, and you, abandoned his brothers and sisters and ran away. Bang. His head was smashed into a pile of mud. No, that's not my name. I refuse this slave's name. He looked around at the crowd and said, no one can tell the truth. You've only heard lies. Angron's gaze swept over the trembling people, and the chainsaw and axe roared and exploded. I never ran away. You damned high knights. You slave traitors, you are their descendants. We burned down cities, I breathed in the smoke from the ruins of Yulheim. It was the most beautiful day of my life, I gouged out the eyes of those nobles and listened to their screams. He looked up at the sky, damn emperor, I never ran away. Angron looked at Lorgar, I want every world eater and word bearer to be killed. First this city, then the world. Dregor gazed at his father, recalling everything that had happened since arriving in Nuceria. He now fully understands what shaped his father into the person he is today. He could understand and agreed with his resistance against the Empire and the Emperor. But everything the father did turned warhounds into a bloodthirsty beast enslaved by butcher's nails. Dregor looked at Chief Apothecary Galan Surik, I hope what he said comes true. Garland turned and left, intending to pray to the Black Emperor as the World Eaters slaughtered Nuceria. 1084 Rage clouded Guilliman's judgment, he was now the son of vengeance. The fourth layer of space is the Nation of Disorder. Chapter Master of Ultramarines, first chapter Glenworth Odo knelt in the black mist. My lord, father has summoned all the warships in the surrounding area, a total of 41 capital ships, and is heading to Nuceria. He took into account the disruption caused by the warp storm during the battle and announced the plan to us in advance. His orders were to destroy the word bearers, fleet and board the world eaters, fleet. Nimrod nodded. Guilliman is blinded by rage, he is now the son of vengeance. He still had hope for Angron, hoping that he was being misled by Lorgar, and he also wanted to persuade him. My lord is wise, and this is indeed the case. Nimrod silently reflected on the strength of both sides in Nuceria. Word bearers lost its fleet advantage due to the division of its forces, and the two sides were almost evenly matched. However, with 3 Abyss-class ships under his command, Lorgar Aurelian's fleet lost the Trinity Prayer, which had been holding back Guilliman's 20 ships. Clearly, the Ultramarines would have the upper hand in the void. Stealing the Gloriana-class battleship from word bearers. Fidelitas Lex was destroyed in Nuceria, and the Chronicle of Ashes was captured by Ultramarines 9 years later. After 5 years of equipment purification and technical exorcism, it was granted the 22nd chapter. Follow your will. As the black mist surged, Glenn returned to the real world. He untied the Euclidean rune, and strode to the bridge. Sir, the jump procedure has been initiated, and we are about to arrive in the Nuceria system. Glenn ascended the throne and brought a series of instruments into view, including holographic vector graphics, multi-segment video screens, and aiming array displays. Ultramarines' fleet was tightly packed, with each capital ship serving as the core, accompanied by cruisers, frigates, and destroyer, as they entered the battlefield. The battle unfolded according to the father's plan. Frigate and destroyer accelerate, focusing their firepower to separate Conqueror, Fidelitas Lex, and Chronicle of Ashes. Battleships and cruisers spread out in formation and fired volleys from both sides. The Macragas Glory locked onto its target and hurtled toward Nuceria like an arrow. Glenn stood up and went to the strategy table. He raised his hand and tapped on it, Chronicle of Ashes. Lord Glenn, this is our chance. We must execute Father's plan perfectly. Quote. Glenn raised his hand, interrupting his adjutant. He understood the adjutant's unspoken meaning. His father had always disliked Terra Born, especially in Chapter 22, Nemesis. Chapters 1 and 2 are the ones my father drafted the least of the 23 chapters in, and the number of times he has participated in battle over the past century can be counted on one hand. Each of them had only one battle that made them famous in the Empire. Chapter 22, in the Cancer Nebula, where their brutal destruction during the purge of demi-human pirates earned them the admiration of the Night Lords who fought alongside them, and thus they were given the name, Nemesis. He followed the Black Emperor and won glory in the Randan War. This is a rare opportunity. The adjutant opened his mouth, looked at Lord Glenn's imposing figure, and then refrained from further questioning, instinctively carrying out the order. While the other warships painted in diamond blue were bombarding the enemy ships from a relatively safe distance around the Allied fleet, the warships of the first and second chapters suddenly accelerated and charged straight toward the enemy ships. Sir, we have established a communication connection with the Radiance of the Macragge. Connected. Yes, sir. The adjutant carried out the order with concern. Communication connection established, signal unstable. Accompanied by a crackling sound of electricity, Wosoto. Glenn thought for a few seconds, filtering out the noise, and identified the other person, Gage. It is me, second chapter Chief Marius. Gage paused. Father has, target, preparation, Nuceria, void battlefield, I command. After listening to Gage's deliberate explanation, Glenn said, of course it's you. You are the Primarch's attendant. You did not carry out Father's plan. I've discovered a new strategic objective and have temporarily changed the plan, Glenn said calmly. As far as I know, my father encouraged flexibility after the Battle of Armatura. Sergeant Hill with the red helmet, isn't he? Your plan, what? Gage asked. To seize the Chronicle of Ashes. Father, sink it. That's right, Glenn replied calmly. Compared to his father's orders, the Black Emperor's oracle was more important. But the Chronicle of Ashes is an asset that can be seized and used by us. Gage lost his connection. Several seconds later, Gage's voice rang out again. If we can't take it, we'll sink it. Call. The adjutant breathed a sigh of relief, turned to look at the former Legion commander of the Sons of War, and reported loudly. Blocking the Chronicle of Ashes. 10 runes of varying sizes surround the Gloriana-class battleship. Boarding. As the Ultramarines' fleet advanced, it unleashed its vengeful fury upon the larger ships. The Azure Shark, with each bite, leaves behind a clump of ash. They suffered greater damage, with armor breached and fuel and coolant leaking out. Hundreds of pieces of metal debris were torn off and floated around, enveloped in flames. The Chronicle of Ashes' lance is extinguished, and the remaining cannons are activated to counterattack. Sir, there is abnormal signal interference inside the target ship. The teleportation platform is unable to lock onto the enemy ship. Glenn watched as the Grey Rock warship, trailing flames, gradually approached Mandeville Point. It's trying to escape. My lord, the main lance array is fully charged. Forced teleportation. Glenn ordered. The Black Emperor's oracle must be fulfilled. Sir, the probability of failure for forced teleportation is 49.38%. Understood, execute the command. Yes, sir. Glenn strode toward the teleportation platform and stood between the adamantite pillars. Honor Guard, wearing iron cavalry-type finisher armor, followed him onto the platform. Sir, the adjutant exclaimed, the Auspex array has detected a massive warship jumping into the real world. The identification signal is Lord Nimrod's Shadow of Sovereignty. Auspex array master reports, warp energy flow has broken through the fog that shrouded the Chronicle of Ashes. Glenn silently raised his hands and clasped them together. The Black Emperor has arrived. Enemy ships' teleportation coordinates have been obtained. The success rate of teleportation has increased to 96%. Activate teleportation. A dazzling light leapt up and enveloped the teleportation platform. A bitter, metallic taste rose in my throat, and every cell was torn apart and then kneaded back together during the teleportation process. After a long yet brief period of torment, the light faded. Glenn looked around and saw a warrior, wearing black gloves and with scales and a skull on his shoulder. Nemesis. Bolter raised his hand and sprayed out a slurry of ash that rained down on the gray-armored warrior. *PFFT. Mark IV's power armor melted away rapidly, and Kolkas's sandstone-colored skin melted into a pool of pus, splattering everywhere. The Nemesis chapter comprises 2 complete destroyer companies, unique in Ultramarines. They retained the bolter as their primary weapon, but replaced it with a specially designed grenade made of a mixture of chemical agents and toxins, capable of rapidly adapting to the target's genetic structure and destroying it. Glenn knew that this ammunition was an improvement on the poison ammunition developed by the Death Guard in the Great Crusade, which his father regarded as a necessary evil. The molten torrent swept forward like a plowshare sweeping across a cave, and the word-bearers wailed as they were reduced to ashes. Glenn strode forward, making his way to the arched hall on the upper deck. He looked around and saw something written in a strange, distorted language on every wall and ceiling. The disciplinary knight intuitively identified the unfamiliar Colchis language, which recorded the history and work of the word-bearers. Glenn suddenly sensed something and turned to look. His gaze fell on a black dagger, exquisitely crafted yet exuding a terrifying evil. The Darkness Apostle grinned menacingly as he brandished his ritual dagger. Although it only holds a phantom of the one held by Erebus, it can still kill any Astartes. The filthy beam of light swept across, crushing more than a dozen vengeful goddesses into dust. A murky black light shot toward Glenn, and an electric shock slammed into the storm shield held aloft by Honor Guard. Boom! Amidst the thunderous roar, eerie energy tore through the storm shield, and current flowed into the Cataphractii Terminator. Smoke rose in wisps as Ultramarines, along with their armor, were melted into ashes. Disciplinary Knight, Glenn raised his arm and declared in the Dun language, "Supernatural powers are forbidden here." Golden light leapt up, meeting the black light. The black and gold light tore at each other, creating bursts of explosions. Disciplinary Knight unleashes all his spirituality, clenching his fist and swinging his arm. Glenn, leaving a trail of afterimages, crashed into the gray rock armor. The Darkness Apostle raised his hand, and intense black light surged around him. Bang! The golden giant fist tore through the black shield with unstoppable force and smashed into the head of the Darkness Apostle. His head exploded with a loud bang. The ceremonial dagger hissed and gleamed with an eerie black light as it struck the deck. Glenn cautiously approached the ceremonial dagger and examined it. Beep beep. A buzzing sound rang out. "My lord, the glory of Macragge has broken through the blockade, and Father has airdropped it into Nacera. Greater than 1085 Nimrod, you're too late, the blood." Lorgar Aurelian's ears twitched as he heard his brother's anguish on the Deshalika Ridge approaching its final beat. He looked up at the sky, and the Ultramarines, drop pods joined the final symphony like a torrential downpour. They established strongholds in perilous, dying cities, and for every one they completed, another was reduced to ruins. The flames of Ultramarines, vengeance collide with the resentment and hatred of word-bearers. The azure blue warrior hates them for murdering Armatura's son and defiling his land. Word-bearers held aloft broken corpses, with bleached bones depicted as symbols of filth. They chanted black hymns and recited sermons from the Book of Lorgar. World-eaters unleash a frenzied rampage, out of control, enslaved by the joy of battle, their fury fueled by the engine of pain. Lorgar. The hand of dominion is raised, unleashing a dense barrage of bullets. Lorgar wielded the Illuminarum that Venus had forged for him, unleashing a shower of lightning. "You are interfering with the hymns, you should not be here." "But here I come." Guilliman strode toward Lorgar and slammed his power punch down. Lorgar's gaze fixed on Guilliman's eyes, which shone with the purest wealth, endless hatred, igniting the Empire's most composed hero's fury. Nimrod was the calmest of them all, even when he watched Horus Lupercal be crowned Warmaster in Ullanor and when he suffered judgment in Nicaea, he remained composed. Lorgar knew this feeling, he knew it when the perfect city was destroyed by the Ultramarines, and he knelt in the ashes. He knew the power of this force, but faith was a force that transcended hatred and sorrow. Lorgar raised his staff, and the disruption field collided. Boom! The immense force shook them away. A tone resonated within Lorgar's skull and eyes as he began to chant the warp song. Armatura. Guilliman gasped for breath, words of vengeance his weapon. Jusa, Karaz, Korin, Ellis 5, Cork Toad, Tick, Amatra. 100 worlds. Lorgar, 100 worlds. His roar drowned out Warp's song, just as the tolling of church bells drowned out Warp's song. Lorgar rolled his tongue and didn't speak. Guilliman raised his right hand and caught the hammerhead in the wailing energy field of the shepherd's staff. He stared into Lorgar's eyes. "Do you see the mark of Armatura?" He gripped Lorgar's armor tightly, swung his arm, and smashed the hand of dominion toward his head. Lorgar swung his staff, projecting a field of psychic energy that stunned Guilliman. He swung his shepherd's staff and struck Guilliman on the head. Bang! The blue helmet shattered, and the prominent forehead and skull fractured. The hand of dominion slammed into Lorgar's chest, tearing off fragments of limestone. Blood dripped down Lorgar's face as he exhaled, and he felt the intense heat pounding against his back. "Why did you come alone? You will die here." Courage and honor. Guilliman's gaze swept over the bloodthirsty figure, and he strode toward Lorgar. "A virtue you'll never understand." Dregor looked ahead at the front lines, where world eaters had broken through Ultramarines' lines. The father was covered in blood, and the blood-soaked father and son spun around like a windmill, splattering blood and flying shards of ceramic steel. Around his neck hung a necklace of human bones, made from skulls recently retrieved from the Deshalika mass grave. Blood churned within him, as if he were breathing. Angron lunged at Guilliman, who cunningly retreated, using the rubble to trip Angron as he shouted at him. "Why have you fallen so deep? Has the nail in your head driven your glory into madness? The battle allows me to dream, the battle restores my peace. And you, besides polishing your armor, what have you done? Guilliman pointed to the burning ruins. Naive. Was it worth going this far? Your people regard you as the greatest leader. My people treat me like a slave. Who descended into heaven and was raised by a foster father? Who inherited a civilized and prosperous kingdom? Who was trained in the halls of the high knights of Markregen and then armed? Angron coughed up blood, who is leading a penniless slave against the entire kingdom. Angron's chainsaw word as he said, "Little blue man, you're just shouting about courage and honor. Do you even understand what they mean? Your courage is running away. Your glory is fleeing." Angron's ferocious attacks forced Guilliman to retreat step by step. You are still a slave, you are enslaved by the past, and you are unwilling to accept the present because of hatred. You held a grudge and failed. Guilliman lunged forward, Bloodfather ripped his left arm away, and his right fist slammed into Angron's chest. Angron froze as Guilliman raised his hand and ripped off his skull. He squeezed hard, and the bones scattered. Bang! Angron witnessed his former brothers and sisters being crushed to dust by combat boots. His eyes were swallowed by crimson. He threw his head back and let out a deafening howl. Lorgar looked up at the sky. Warp is buzzing. Lorgar's curled tongue unfurled, and he began to chant in a language never before spoken by any creature. His song blends perfectly with Angron's anguished cries. Angron whirled around Bloodfather, the axe blade tearing open Guilliman's right ribs. The blue giant stumbled backward. Boom! The sky cracked open. The murdered souls of hundreds of worlds converge into a storm. Blood rain poured down, engulfing the entire world. Lorgar held his head high, letting the blood rain nourish his body, filling his throat and mouth. He did not stop chanting, and the true names of countless unborn beings flowed out, converging into a river of white silk. With a wave of his hand, reality was shattered into pieces. The earth trembled with his breath. The sunlight screamed and pierced through, its malevolent rays striking the soldiers on both sides. The shadows of each Astartes, Ultramarines, Word-Bearers, and World-Eaters are elongated and distorted into humanoid images. The vehicle's machine spirit screamed and screeched. The wreckage of the building wailed amidst the rain of blood. Flames and smoke swirled and danced, hovering above the heads of the World-Eaters. Lorgar's song reached its climax, while Warp's tide surged in fury. Angron embodies the purest form of rage, with the Blood Father and Blood Son entwined in a crimson waterfall. The blood and flesh of the Honor Guard paved a crimson path. Angron took one step after another, and sparks flew as his hand of dominion was struck. The first 8 steps, the hand of dominion, are dimmed. The second 8 steps saw fragments of the azure armor fly everywhere. On the third 8 steps, Guilliman stumbled backward. On the fourth 8 step, Guilliman's legs trembled, and his swift steps slowed. On the fifth of the 8 steps, Guilliman's blood splattered. On the 6th step, Guilliman's arms went limp, and he wrapped them around his head to protect it. On the 7th of the 8 steps, Guilliman stumbled and staggered. The 8th step. Bang! Guilliman's arms were knocked open by Bloodfather and Bloodson, and he slowly collapsed to the ground. Right now, Lorgar gazes at his brother, roaring to the sky, swearing victory. He raised the Illuminarum high, locked the falling axes, and ignited the neural synapses in his brain. Angron missed a fatal blow and watched as Guilliman crawled away in front of him. His anger erupted. Forgive me, but everyone has to dance to the rhythm of warp, even you, Angron. Lorgar sings the final beat of the warp song, and the melody of slaughter from 100 worlds sings a long, drawn-out song in the material realm. Thunder roared and joined the great song. Lightning struck out of nowhere, igniting Angron's body. The flames burned fiercely, burning like fuel for trillions of souls across 100 worlds. The scorching blood rain splattered, causing the power armor paint on the Astartes to fade. The armor of Ultramarines, Word-Bearers, and World-Eaters was burned to its original gray color. I offer myself to you, a sea of blood and a burning world, Lorgar cried out. Angron crashed into the tides behind the curtain, sinking into Lorgar's warp song. The boiling power cleansed his flesh, scorched his blood, and filled his lungs. The surging power within Angron melted the armor, leaving Primarch's scarred body a crimson mess. The charred bronze skeleton vaguely reflected a huge phantom. He is like the embodiment of rage erupting from a volcano. The sleeves evaporated the filthy blood rain into water vapor. Its sharp claws will cause the blood to rise like clouds. His body swayed with the warp's song. Lorgar gazes at his brother, Angron, whose muscles are torn apart, whose blood melts into mercury, is then pounded into lava, and finally ignites into a sacred fire. His body began to tear apart. He is growing. He is rising. His body moved with warp distortion vibrates with tidal rhythms, tearing flesh and soul apart. The sound of warp resounded through every atom of his divine form, followed by every subatomic particle. The screams of trillions of souls gradually subsided. After enduring a lifetime of torment, he gradually became perfect. You have always walked a painful path, and no one hates this path as much as you do, even if they have the same profound power. No one has ever felt the pain of being betrayed by life. You have to become like this. In the most painful and angry moments, there is no other way out. Primarch's genetic code underwent a fundamental change, transforming entirely into fury. Lorgar raised his arms high with Illuminarum, gazing at the shimmering golden light. Nimrod, you're too late, blood. Greater than. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.